Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, February 8th, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Digby from the blog Hullabaloo, or Heather Parton from the website salon.com, will be here to look back on the week that was and continues to be. Also, special guest running for public advocate, hot off her performance in the debate 2 nights ago. She did great. Nomiki Konst will call in. And then, still on the road. I think the last time we talked to him was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. He was on the road. Film guy Matthew, who apparently is just living the life of luxury. Of what? Road guy Matthew. Also on the program today, 5 to 4. Roberts votes with the liberals against the Louisiana trap law. But Susan Collins has some explaining to do as Brett Kavanaugh writes to the dissent, which would have effectively gutted Roe v. Wade. Meanwhile, Bezos outs Pecker's plan to blackmail him as the Trump National Enquirer scandal thickens. Supreme Court makes a move to say Islam not a real religion.
Thank you.
Yeah. And rest in peace, John Dingell leaves us at age 92. Got in some very good shots at Donald Trump before he left, but also
He
did not leave to see his dream of healthcare in the way that he wanted, but certainly some progress. Trump seeks, or I should say, seats another 44 right-wing judges, rather. And the Green New Deal slammed by the Trumpistas as being too ambitious. Turns out Paul Manafort is either a pathological liar or he has something to hide.
Or, the third option. All of the above.
Or both. Trump mad that Adam Schiff is a better boss than he is. And Attorney General stooge Matthew Whitaker testifies to the House Judicial Committee. And finally, Trump reverses the Obama-era payday loan restrictions. So congratulations, folks. You still have the opportunity to be subject to predatory loans that will drive you into a financial ditch. Just a reminder, this program relies on its members to exist week in, week out, day out. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, not only do we give you our heartfelt thanks, we also give you extra content every single day, nearly. Almost every single day. But always we provide you the show commercial-free, although some people complain about that, but you can check out our deals that we have on our website now. It's all been
one of the
filled
more
in.
unusual complaints that we get.
Well, the commercials sometimes can be fun, and also there's some frankly good deals.
Yes.
Go to Joybird, get 25% off. I'm eyeing that one big time.
That's a good one.
There's maybe a nice chair I may get there. Anyways, I don't want to get any free plugs, but
You just did.
Well, I did. I also got a really nice note that I was going to save for when we're doing a Harry's, but apparently somebody uses the body wash and they really like it. Gulag Greg.
Gulag Greg uses the body.
So you can become a
That's
member.
the best endorsement
I
I've
couldn't
ever
believe
heard
it.
as a product.
They should put that.
So Gulag Greg endorsed. So you can become a member today by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. 2 clips before we bring in Digby. This one from the State of the Union. I was trying to express this the other day as we were doing our, we pre-recorded the intro to Wednesday's show because Thursday night got pretty late and involved a lot of alcohol. And I was trying to communicate how much Donald Trump did not seem to be connected to the words he was saying and the idea that he had clearly only read the speech maybe once. And I think nothing captures that more than his inability to differentiate between these two ideas. They just seem to be all words that he's reading. They have no meaning whatsoever. And here is this short clip to illustrate that point.
All children, born and unborn, are made in the holy image of God. The final part of my agenda is to protect American security.
They can't. Nancy Pelosi's face is just sort of precious. She's like, wait, what?
We were saying earlier that she's basically breaking in new sinew in her face with how incredulous she is.
Start it over because this is how it should be delivered.
All children, born and unborn, are made in the holy image of God. The final part of my agenda.
Okay, pause it. So it was supposed to be all children are made in the holy image of God.
New paragraph.
The final part of my agenda is national security. That's supposed to be what happened. But because he's not conscious of he has no attachment to these words, he is literally reading this as if English was a second or third language to him. He's good at but it's not, he has no idea what the words mean. And he's just reading them off with no intonation because, again, he doesn't realize, new thought.
They can edit it better.
They could fix it post.
That's how I read ads.
Exactly. Razor's good.
Razors are good. The final part is the code.
No, you can't even do it. You can't even do it. You can't even. It's almost impossible to just off the top of your head because it goes against all of the things that we know when we get attached to language. But all right, here's another clip. This is pretty good. Do we have? People should check our Instagram thing. John Benjamin and Larry Murphy made a great graphic that we put up on our Instagram account. We have an Instagram account now. Did you know that, Matt?
I was aware, yeah.
It is, and we retitled it. It's the Majority Report with Sam Seder. Our Instagram specialist was.
I saw the Instagram specialist came in and cleaned house a little bit.
Yes, they did. And if you head over there now it's a little bit cleaner, and each little morsel of Instagram is precious. We don't, but it's a very funny graphic that shows ostensibly a Fox News poll. Those who oppose taxing people over 10 million, those in favor, 70%. Those against, well, you'll have to find out. That's a little tease. But meanwhile, here is what is this? This is clip number what that you have up there? Oh, this is Maria Bartiromo, and she is on Fox News with Shannon Bream. That's her name, and Bill Hemmer. Is Hemmer sleepy today?
I don't know. Sleepy's the
Euphemism?
He's a little bit less loosey-goosey today.
Okay. He's all right. Sometimes he gets a little bit. He has a real demeanor change these days. Anyways, here they are. They're talking about why you shouldn't tax wealthy people on their wealth.
Here's the headline, Wall Street Journal. New Democratic agenda sure looks like government control over the means of production. So they went through Medicare for All, endorsed by 16 other senators. Kamala Harris had the line last week, let's eliminate all that, meaning the employer insurance.
Yeah, because
the new Green Deal, endorsed by 40 House Democrats. Guaranteed government job for all. Kirsten Gillibrand has tweeted in support of that. Vastly higher taxes. It's now being debated in the House Ways and Means Committee to raise taxes even higher. There's some of the headlines from that.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're looking at Medicare for all, it's actually, as James Freeman says all the time, Medicare for none, because you're replacing private health insurance companies with a new self-payer, one-payer government assistance Medicare program. So of course that's socialism. And then
Pause it. Wait a second. But I'm not clear on why it's Medicare for none.
Or why it's self-payer.
Because it's just like Venezuela.
I get it now. Chicago politics.
So of course that's socialism. And then the Green Deal, this is an idea where the government is in charge and the government is allocating resources to individuals. Everybody has the same. What does that do for productivity? We talked about that in the past. Why would you want to work really hard to think that you can, in fact, achieve success if you know that no matter what you do, it's all the same as the next person?
It's hard to believe. And that Wall Street Journal piece also
Pause it. This is an interesting theory because we have seen worker productivity rise so exponentially over the past 30 years or so that 40 years that the minimum wage is about, if it followed productivity, would be somewhere in the low 20s an hour. So this concept of, and these are people, I got news for you, they would never be in danger of paying the top marginal tax rate as they work. Yet their productivity continues to go up. Maybe that's why, because they're not afraid of paying the top marginal tax rate.
Same as the next person.
It's hard to believe. And that Wall Street Journal piece also took on Elizabeth Warren's proposed wealth tax and said this. Ms. Warren wants a new 2% wealth tax on assets over $50 million and 3% over $1 billion, including assets held abroad. France recently junked its wealth tax because it was so counterproductive. And such a tax has never been levied in America. This is government confiscation merely because someone has earned or saved more money than someone else. Socialism?
Yeah, exactly. I love the way they wrote that, actually. And it's true. It is confiscation. Because the truth is you could work your whole life, work really hard, achieve success, make money, and then get it taken away, confiscated by the government. These policies oftentimes lead to unintended consequences where people will actually see that they're being overtaxed, see that their money is being confiscated, and they will come up with various structures to hide income. And so at the end of the day, the government's not getting that revenue anyway. I'm talking about...
Now, you know what's amazing about this? Here he is. She's a business news, right? And she is conflating wealth and income. Like they're going to hide their income because of a wealth tax. No, they would hide their income like they do now because of an income tax, which we also incidentally have. A wealth tax, I guess she's arguing that they'll hide their income. Well, the wealth, as long as we can see the wealth, or at least part of it, we'll get 2% of that wealth.
I'd be happy to take a much more aggressive, punitive approach to that as well. So if the issue that she's concerned about is like lack of regulatory authority and investigative powers by the IRS to get that money, I think we could take care of that too.
Tough on crime.
Yeah,
I'm tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime.
Is there another area where they're like, oh, people might not follow these laws, therefore these laws shouldn't exist?
Why would you have 3 strikes laws? People still shoplift.
Exactly.
Ooh, I would actually, maybe what we really need to do is bring in the ATF for this. Forget about the IRS. Let's just get the hardcores.
Or SEAL Team 6.
will actually see that they're being overtaxed, see that their money is being confiscated, and they will come up with various structures to hide income. And so at the end of the day, the government's not getting that revenue anyway. I'm talking about legal structures in some ways, where people will try their hardest to change the way their income is measured. And that's one of the unintended consequences.
It will clearly be an issue during the primary for the Democratic campaign.
Yeah, for sure.
All these candidates are going to be asked about it, where they stand.
Exactly.
I saw a business network yesterday afternoon. It was not Fox Business. The banner on the screen said attacking socialism.
Attacking socialism.
Attacking socialism with the president's face behind it to State of the Union. Now, segment was a lot better than.
That's a bad thing.
Well, I took a double take.
A double take?
Oh, I took a double take.
No, he didn't take a double take. He took a double take. Can we just go back on that? I mean, no, this is getting petty here, but I just want
to say the union. Now, segment was a lot better than.
That's a bad thing.
Well, I took a double take.
He is so scared of socialism, he can't even talk right now. It's great.
I don't know. Does socialism come in a bottle?
Well, maybe. Why does he drink?
Well, there you have it. It is pretty funny though to hear them like read this off as if like they're almost like holding back laughter, and it just doesn't match up with the words when they're saying like proposing a 2% tax on wealth over $50 million.
I think if it went for too much longer, they'd probably start crying.
Well, I
know
mean,
what they say. We laugh to keep from crying.
Of course. But when they deliver their stuff and they're attempting to make it sound bad and stupid, it can't help but resonate with people. Just go, I'm not sure what's so funny about 2% on 50 million. Is that going to be...
They're relying on tone of voice to make the argument.
Exactly. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Digby.
My boss is a rubber bubble. Put me as an...
Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program a regular Friday guest, ladies and gentlemen, who inspired this little ditty.
Are you ready for some Digby? Yeah. Are you ready for some Digby? Digby, yeah.
Digby, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine. I'm ready.
You're ready. Now I know you've been watching. The Whitaker hearings, and we were watching this beforehand. Just give us a brief update. What's happening up to this point with Whitaker? Jerry Nadler has been rather. I guess he has towed the line in this instance, right? Whitaker was saying that he wasn't going to show up unless he was promised that there would be no subpoena. But the first thing, so Nadler said, as long as you answer, there'll be no subpoena. And when he got here, when he got to the committee, shortly after it was clear he was started stonewalling, Nadler said, "You know what? We could subpoena you." Because you're not really holding up your end of the bargain. That was pretty. I was pretty happy with that. But what's happened since then?
Well, since then, as far as I know, I haven't watched for the last 10 minutes or so. But prior to that, it was pretty clear that Whitaker. I mean, he had obviously been prepped for this and was prepped with some sort of wooden, halting answers that were designed to say, I will not, discuss my private conversations. And he didn't explicitly evoke executive privilege or that weird Jeff Sessions and Steve Bannon and the rest of them who had evoked. And one of the things that Nadler was trying to do was to sort of deal with the fact that they have been in the 2 years prior coming up to the Hill and evoking this weird privilege that doesn't exist. In other words, just saying, well, I'm not going to say anything because the president might want to evoke executive privilege in the future. That's not how it works. The president has to do it. It's his privilege, and he has to say, no, you're not allowed to talk about this. That's executive privilege. So they've been trying to change that, and I think that Nadler, a lot of this thing around Whitaker and this particular sort of controversy that's been going back and forth. I don't know if people have followed it over the last few days, but Nadler had, obviously Whitaker had been stalling and trying not to actually have to make this appearance before he left, before William Barr was confirmed. But they were unable to do it. So he ended up having to come up. And what Nadler had done back in January was sent up a series of questions, say, I'm giving you these questions in advance so that you can ask the president if he wants to invoke executive privilege. If he does, then you'll have to let us know 48 hours in advance so that we can properly prepare the committee. That's reasonable. Well, they ignored it, or he forgot or something. But in any case, he didn't respond. And so Nadler said that, they decided to hold a vote in the committee as to whether or not they would subpoena him if he decided not to show up at all, which was entirely possible. The way they were acting was that Whitaker was just going to blow off the hearing. They'd put in Barr, and that would, allegedly be the end of that. And Nadler was having none of it. So they went through this subpoena battle back and forth over the idea that, he was, he was either going to comply or they were going to start using the sanctions that they have available to them as the oversight, as the congressional oversight, and that they were going to subpoena him. Well, they went back and forth until the end of the day yesterday. Finally, it was agreed upon that he would not subpoena him if he came down to the Hill, answered the questions, and then, as you say, this is what's happened this morning. So they're continuing the hearing, but from what I understood, and I may be wrong about this, Nadler said, look, we're going to have you come back and do a deposition, and then we'll release that, under oath, and then we'll release that deposition to the public. So I don't think this is over, and I think you're right that Nadler's not playing, and neither are the rest of the committees in the Congress. They're not playing. They are absolutely going to press this stuff, and as I've been watching Whitaker this morning, I mean, he's just saying, he didn't invoke executive privilege, he's just saying, I'm not going to talk about this. He's saying, I'm refusing to talk about this stuff. I don't talk about ongoing investigations, which would be fair enough normally, but he did do it in a press conference the other day. And he also said that, he's also saying that he won't discuss his private conversations with the president, which to me indicates that he had them in some respect or another. So that's where we are today on this. And, the guy's just a dolt. He has absolutely no business being in this position at all.
Let me just ask a broader question about executive privilege. So what my understanding is what they've basically been saying is that we've developed a new form of executive privilege, which is the anticipatory executive privilege, right? Because executive privilege is just specifically where the president The president invokes executive privilege. Nobody in the cabinet can invoke executive privilege. They don't have it. They can only communicate to the committee. The president has invoked executive privilege on this particular manner. And so what Sessions did, and I'm reiterating what you said just to make sure that I understand it too. What Sessions et al. Did was like, I think the president would might want to invoke executive privilege for this. So I'm invoking an anticipatory privilege associated with me about what I would anticipate the president would do with him. And that doesn't exist. That's a made up thing. What is it about the president invoking executive privilege? I mean, my understanding is all it is it's just the president invoked executive privilege and the president has a reason not to talk about it. Is it just that politically it's associated with stuff so much from Nixon that it's toxic? I mean, like, I don't quite understand the salience of this, because it seems nobody cares about norms anyways.
Well, I agree with you that nobody cares about norms anyways, and certainly the administration doesn't care. I mean, they have no respect for norms or even, the constitutionally required congressional oversight. I mean, clearly they just don't care about any of that. But and I am no expert on this, so forgive me, all you lawyers and experts out there, if you're listening, if I get this wrong. But my understanding is that executive privilege does obviously exist. But it's never truly been litigated all the way. The reason we know it exists is because the Supreme Court agreed that it existed in the Nixon tapes case, but there were exceptions. And from what I understand from, just what I've seen by TV lawyers who talk about this, that it's not just something you can just blanket, that you would expect that you could just blanketly invoke whenever you don't want to talk about something. In other words, the president has to have a good reason for it. National security or some kind of, they want, unfettered advice from their staff, and they wouldn't be able to get that if they had to talk about these things. In other words, it's not just a blanket sort of privilege that the president can invoke whenever he wants to. However, none of this stuff has been litigated, and my personal feeling is that I think that Nadler understands that they are about to go into some serious litigation over this stuff. There is going to be a point at which it's going to go to court, and that we're going to start seeing the courts involved in that particular question of executive privilege. And it's not because Nadler necessarily wants it to be, but because they have used these weird excuses and have refused to do the proper process in invoking the privilege. I mean, the president, for reasons that I don't understand, is refusing to do that, or at least maybe they've decided that they're going to, I mean, look, you've got some real extremist sort of lawyers on the Republican side who may have decided that they believe in unfettered executive power, that maybe they've decided that they're just going to take this all the way and say the president never has to talk about anything he doesn't want to talk about, ever, because he's the executive and it's his privilege to not say anything. And they're just going on the assumption that the American people, or at least the American people they care about, are fine with that. So, I mean, that's my guess on that Nadler and the rest of the people on the Judiciary Committee understand that this is just a beginning, and they're setting up a series of probable confrontations because they know this is going to be litigated down the road. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm just guessing on that, but that's how it looks to me. I mean, this all seems very kind of it's thought out on the Democratic side for sure, that they've been plotting this knowing that they were going to be coming up against as much possible resistance as they could get. So I think they've been setting this up.
And let's get this resolved as early in the in the proceedings as possible, because there's only going to be more stuff. In some ways they're like, okay, let's just address the process issues early so that we can continue on with these investigations. And there are multiple ones, obviously. And we should say the investigations range. I mean, if there was no Mueller investigation, right, there would be still a record-breaking number of needed investigations, from just the sheer sort of, I don't know if I would call it graft or corruption that has existed so far in the Trump administration. Each cabinet member seems to have had their own sort of uniquely impressive corruption scandal, which is
Very
also
impressive.
which we also saw this week, which was sort of fascinating. And I think so much of this stuff gets sort of rolled into the Russia investigations, but presuming there was no question of whether there was Russian collusion or whether all the lying that's gone on and all et cetera, the money laundering that probably happened under the Trump administration, I should say under the Trump Inc. This week, the Southern District of New York, just the U.S. Attorney's Office, opened up an investigation into the Trump inauguration because there was so much money raised for so little delivered. And I think, and I'm curious what you can tell us about why the Southern District of New York would have jurisdiction over this. The other question I have is, it seems to me that it's got to have something to do with that huge amount of money paid to a consultant who was a friend of Melania's. But it could be anything, right?
Well, I think it's all tied up with, well, let me just say this. I'm not sure why it's in the Southern District of New York. You'd have to ask somebody who understands the way those jurisdictions work. But my assumption is, as a layperson, that this has something to do with the Trump Organization, which is in New York. And that there is, I read a very interesting piece this morning on the Daily Beast by Barbara McQuaid, former prosecutor, U.S. attorney. And I think she's from Michigan. In any case, she's on TV a lot, and people who watch these shows probably recognize her. But she had a very interesting take on the inauguration and some of the other stuff, because we also learned this week that the Southern District has been interviewing members of the Trump Organization. So we don't know if that's connected or whether there's something else or whether or not this is one case or, many cases. But her theory is that this is actually has the contours of a RICO investigation. And RICO is the Racketeering Act, which was created back in 1970, mostly as a way to try and get to the mob, because what they had done was organize themselves in such a way as to insulate the big bosses from any kind of criminal exposure. So they had to find a way to do it, and they created this law, which as a civil libertarian, I've often thought, boy, this is really reaching. But in this case, it may be the only way that they can do this, or at least using the premise of the sort of RICO concept of how you put together a conspiracy, that conspiracy case. That this may be the way that they're going about this. And this is where it has to do with the inauguration, which has to do with the Trump Organization, and the fact, which, getting back to your original point, if there were no Mueller investigation, the mere fact that the President of the United States refused to divest himself of his business and put it into a blind trust or do something other than just say, well, my boys are in charge and I'm leaving it up to them, would be cause for a tremendous amount of investigation, and theoretically a criminal investigation as well, because it's not just a constitutional problem with the emoluments. There's obviously been pay to play, which is what we're looking at with this inauguration situation. We've got massive amounts of money that were raised. It really appears, just judging from this person that you mentioned who was Melania's friend who ran it, it may actually be that she winds up being a big whistleblower on this thing, because it was just revealed that there are tapes between her and Michael Cohen that were picked up during the raid on Michael Cohen's offices, in which she's talking about her own misgivings about the way this money was spent and how she had tried to bring it up and was told to keep it quiet. And then you've got Rick Gates, who is the Manafort's a major domo, who has been cooperating with Mueller and, maybe cooperating with the Southern District of New York as well, because he was on the inauguration committee. And so all of this money was churning around. He raised like twice as much as Obama's in 2008. And we know the results. It wasn't like, they had a lavish ceremony or anything. So that money went someplace, and there's all these, foreign, apparent, kind of a slush fund of foreign investors in there. I mean, it's quite an ugly thing. And then all those tentacles come into the Trump organization. Then, they come back out into the Mueller investigation, and all of this is intertwined. So, this is this is the kind of situation, conspiracy sort of situation, where you could see the RICO statute kind of being put to use to try and put the whole thing together.
I am convinced, and this is based on nothing, I should say, or very little. But I'm just, the whole thing sounds to me like, and again, this is complete speculation, that this was a way of funneling money to Melania. I'm sure there was other things that they were doing this, but when her best friend or her friend gets literally like $25 million for a consulting fee, that sounds like to me a backdoor way of paying off Melania. Like, I'm sorry that I won the presidency. All the reporting was she was extremely mad, and something's got the idea that her best friend is brought in and then it's just sort of like shuttled away. That's just sounds to me like, these are all professional money launderers. And,
right, exactly.
And so the idea of this is the way we deal with things. Money comes in one end, we give it out another end, we make sure that it's not traceable in some fashion. Right. I mean, and this seems to be fairly straightforward. The Southern District of New York is going to be able to follow that money, it seems to me, fairly easily, right? Like, it goes into your bank account, then we'll find out where it goes after that. Maybe someplace in the Cayman Islands would be my guess. But it's going to be pretty nuts, I think, once we start to dig into that. And again, this is an investigation that, if it was just this, right? If it was just this, it seems like that would be a huge, huge scandal. But it's
think about this. Trump said yesterday he woke up on the wrong side of the bed yesterday morning and accidentally watched MSNBC and heard that Adam Schiff was, hiring some people, that had once worked in the White House National Security Council.
Yes.
And he heard this story, and he was completely freaked out. And he, did his usual tweet tantrum. And in that tweet tantrum, he said, "This has never happened before. No president has ever been investigated like this. This is outrageous. This is, disgusting, et cetera, et cetera." And we know how he feels. He's a whiner. Maybe the most, vociferous whiner in world history. And so he was really upset. And the idea that there have been investigations his entire adult life, starting with Richard Nixon and his abuse of power and corruption, all the way through to Benghazi. Every single decade, there have been, there's Iran-Contra, and of course there was Clinton, which the Whitewater case was about some, crappy land deal from the 1980s, from, decades before, that was worth, $30,000. They spent years and years investigating that. And he's acting like nobody's ever done this before. Well, they need to look in the mirror, because of course it's been done before. And by the way, the people who, have really been crooks in all this were were the Republicans. Clinton turned out to be just, it was all kind of Penny Ante, Gothic Arkansas nonsense. And, Benghazi, my God, they spent, years on that for absolutely no good reason. So, he needs to stop complaining and recognize that, he apparently didn't take this into consideration before he ran for president. That, if you're a criminal and you're running a criminal enterprise, maybe not a good idea.
Well,
to put yourself under this kind of scrutiny, because it was always going to happen.
He may have also, to be fair, he also may have thought, I'm never going to win.
True.
And so no one's going to levy this type of scrutiny. I think there's two things going on. I think it's one, he didn't think he was going to win, and so he didn't think he'd be subject to the scrutiny. And two, I think this is sort of the Kavanaugh principle. It's like, hey, wait a second. I am now part of a class of people who don't have to, are my forebears did not get held accountable. This is not fair. That's what this is a loss of privilege for me, and I should not be held to this level of account. I feel like is part of it. All right, but let's also just turn to this other thing that's sort of fascinating. So Jeff Bezos, I guess it was yesterday, takes to Medium and writes a letter to the world, basically saying that he got contacted by the folks at National Enquirer who are concerned about the investigations the Washington Post is doing into the relationship between the Enquirer and the Saudis and the Trump administration, and basically said, we have dick pics of you that you took and your girlfriend, and boy, it would really suck for them to get out into the public. Maybe we should meet in the context of all the stuff that you're pursuing, in terms of chasing us down. And Bezos basically said, I'm the richest guy in the world, and I live in my own universe, and so I don't care what pics you have of my penis. I am going to out you. And that's what happened. And I don't know. For me, the really fascinating part was how much he talks about Saudi Arabia in this piece, right? Like that seems like a little bit of a bank shot, but it's as if it's his way of threatening them, look, I want you just to be aware, we're much closer to finding some connections that you may not have thought of. And we're going to put it out there right now. This is the way that we leak stuff out there.
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of rumors to that effect that the Post has some kind of information. They were the employers of Khashoggi. They were, and they've been truly, I think, the people at the Post who worked with him. I think and reporters in general, but especially at the Post. But we're just completely appalled by what happened, and also the fact that Trump and Jared Kushner, who apparently was helping MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, with his damage control on the story, was calling him up and saying, hey, let me help you out here. They're truly appalled and offended by this. And so they've been pursuing this. And at the same time, I think that Bezos hired, one of the country's most, well-known private investigators. What's his name? Gavin de Becker, I think. Excuse me. Out in Hollywood, he's very well known as a super top investigator, and I think I'm not surprised that Bezos would hire him. And he's also been on this, and there, of course, Bezos was sending a shot across the bow there, which is kind of like, hey, are you sure you want to go here? Are you sure you want to mess with this? And I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that I don't think Bezos cares about his dick pics. He's the richest man in the world. Whatever. And
you
frankly,
can buy an unlimited amount of
else,
penises after that, or
exactly.
I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, who cares? And none of us care about dick pics at this point. It's
right.
What we've seen one dick pic, we've seen them all, right? So, this is no big deal. And the fact that Bezos, is extremely powerful in terms of his wealth and in terms of the fact that he owns the Washington Post, I think that he's decided to take to use that power that he has as a billionaire, or excuse me, as Howard Schultz says, a man of means.
Right.
That he's going to use that to try and push this, and actually try and use his power for good in this one respect. I'm not trying to give him a pass on all the rest of it, but in this case, and hey, this is a really interesting tactic on Bezos's part, because when I was in the sixth grade, Charlie Adcock caught a note that I'd sent to a friend in which I called the teacher a bitch, and he blackmailed me for it. and was saying that he was going to tell her, and I had to give him money and do all that. So I took the note to the teacher,
Hold
and I
on
said, "I'm really sorry."
Hold on 1 second. We just got to note that breaking news. We just broke some news there. Go ahead.
About Charlie Adcock?
Yeah, right. The whole story.
Right. I know it's a big one. Really, really interesting. But I'm just saying that this is one way to deal with blackmailers, right? Which is just take it upon yourself to just sort of go and admit that the thing happened. And in the end, the blackmailer often looks way worse for doing what he did. So I think that that's what his approach is here, and I think he's done himself some good too. I mean, the dick pics are the least of it, right? I mean, at this point, we may be talking about an international incident that could reflect very, very badly on the Inquirer, and also on this. The Inquirer's been doing this with Trump's enemies for a long time, right? I mean, this came out during the Cohen thing. I mean, we knew that Pecker was called up to Trump Tower when Trump decided to run for president, and Trump said, "So how can you help me with this campaign?" And Pecker said, "Well, let's see what we can do here." So, I mean, the idea that there's a political overlay here, that perhaps he was also helping out his friend Trump, is also a big part of this.
Yeah, and I mean, more and more, it sort of feels like there's this group of guys who are friends who are just like, we're going to get in on this deal. And there's all these, like, it sort of reminds me of, his name escaped, was it Collins? Who was the congressman who was like getting insider information for stocks? And was it Collins? And was just like, I've made 4 millionaires in Congress. They're all rich because of me. Like, it's
what?
Like all the money just sort of flowing around with these guys, and you start to wonder, with the Saudis and UAE. I mean, there's just, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff flowing through here, and it just seems like it gets more and more layered as we go. But Digby, thanks for unwinding some of this. Go back to watching the Whitaker, the Whitaker hearings.
I have to?
Well, I need to catch up on it after the show, so I'm going to go read what you've written about it. But,
okay.
As always, thanks so much for your time today, Digby. Always
thanks
a pleasure.
for having me, Sam. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to a candidate for public advocate. We are just days away from the, literally a couple of days away from the end of the period where matching grants, where you can make enough money to get matching grants in the public advocates race. Super important. And this is coming also off the heels of a debate the other night. Nomiki Konst is going to join us in just a second. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome to the program the former TYT correspondent, the former. Are you still a member of the Unity Commission on for the Democratic Party?
I don't actually think we finished all of our business. It's like there's a DNC meeting every 6 months, and I think we have a couple of things that still need to be voted on. But for the most part, we don't meet anymore. It's not a commission that holds hearings. We published our report, but we haven't, I don't know, adjourned ourselves, I guess.
Well, in that case, then I will introduce you as a current candidate for the public advocate position in New York City, with the election just literally, 2 weeks away, right?
Oh, my God, don't freak me out. Yes, it's Tuesday, February 26th.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nomiki Konst is joining us. Hello, Nomi. See how I really dragged out that intro.
I liked it. It was good.
All right. Well, so there was a debate. Well, first off, let's just start with this, because this is hugely important. And, I've been talking to people about that. A lot of people don't realize that New York City has one of the best public financing schemes for candidates in the country, where they will match 8-to-1, dollar for dollar, up to $250, so that big money can't influence it too dramatically. They will match as long as you get past a threshold of how much in the context of your race.
So for this race, because it's a very unique race, it's a special election. It's $62,500. But to get more technical, you want to overshoot it because people spell their names wrong, they have the wrong address, they say avenue instead of road, and the CFB, the Campaign Finance Board of the city, because this is taxpayer money, they're very strict about this, and people have gotten in a lot of trouble for abusing the system in the past. So we are trying to overshoot and raise about $80,000 in matching funds. But of course, we're receiving donations from all over the country, and we've raised over $125,000. But it's a big deal. As soon as we hit this deadline, we are able to spread our message in these final 2 weeks, which is the time when everyone starts to pay attention.
And so, if you're out of if you live outside of New York City, you still give through the link that we have on the Majority.fm page. But if you're in New York City, know that if you give $5 up to $250, you can multiply that times 8, and that's how much money Nomi's going to get for her run. And so, with that out of the way, you had a debate 2 nights ago. There were 9 candidates on the stage, at least. It was
a total of 10. 9 others.
And 9 others. And all right, so give me your sense of how that debate went.
It's so funny because I've been debating since I was a kid. Like it's one of my favorite pastimes. I always feel very different about it, and then I watch it and I see something that's very different than what I felt when I was on stage. So I was actually extremely nervous. I'm going to be completely open and honest. If you weren't a candidate on stage that was nervous, you're probably a sociopath, frankly. But there's a lot of those in politics. I was very excited to see that online most people said that we won. The press has been a little funny about it because we got almost the most airtime. The only person who got a little bit more than us was the former speaker, Melissa Mark Viverito, but the feedback on her airtime was not positive. So at the end of the day, I think that we probably did the best in the debate. And the biggest reason is that what separates us from the rest of the candidates on stage is we are not in bed with real estate developers. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been thrown around, possibly millions actually, in this race. In previous races, people are using developer money in this race from their old accounts. And while all of them were talking about Band-Aid issues, we were able to get to the heart of it and say, you can't do this if you don't deal with taxing developers. You can't do these things unless you deal with taxing, the Amazon, the tax schemes. And I think that resonated with folks. I called out a lot of folks who've portrayed themselves as progressives in the past, but then I asked questions about why they were aligned with certain financial interests. And, I think that went well for my part. I mean, next one's a couple of weeks, so we'll see how that one goes.
I know this question of taking real estate developer money has been one of the cornerstones of your campaign, and I think anybody who knows New York City politics knows that some of the biggest issues, really, frankly, center around housing. Whether and that bleeds down to the integration of our schools. It bleeds down to the tax base. It bleeds down to who can afford to live in the city. It bleeds down to public transport. So this is what everything sort of is downstream of this question. So I know some of the other candidates. We've had people ask us about this. Why isn't the pledge? I think it is by the New York Rental Association. Why isn't that sufficient as opposed to what you where you have staked your flag on in terms of taking no developer money whatsoever? Why is it not enough to say I don't take for-profit developer money?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you see these. I call them I actually said this on stage in the debate that there's developer philanthropy being given out. So take these rezonings that are happening. There was a little bit of a moment where the former Speaker of the City Council, Melissa Marks Viverito, I asked her a question. I said, "You ran on an anti-gentrification pledge when you first moved to East Harlem and ran for council, but soon after you started taking developer money and you were part of a developer philanthropy scheme in which you rezoned your neighborhood, but it was in exchange for building these big buildings that are fancy luxury apartments that hand out a couple of affordable apartments in them, and that's not actually preserving affordable housing in New York. That is a partnership that really lets these developers get their tax breaks, and then they throw a little bit of candy to the city. But they're changing the neighborhood. They're making it more expensive for people to rent around those buildings. They're driving up the cost of living. They're driving up the commercial rent cost, and they're not contributing back on top of it. So, this is an old scheme in the city since real estate's been deregulated in the mid-'70s, and I think a lot of Democrats have used it as cover because they have some sort of affordable housing plan, but that's just philanthropy. And I think that we need to get off of this, the developer model of they decide how we fund our, the billionaires decide how we fund our city and not the people. And I said the same thing about the MTA. I said, well, there's this question, do you think that the governor should control the MTA or the mayor should control the MTA? And I said, well, I think the MTA should be municipalized. I think it should be controlled by the city. When you have political appointees on the board of the MTA, one of which is a developer that doesn't even live in the city, that's determining the lifeblood of the city. That's determining whether or not small businesses are able to afford their rents. There's subway stations that got shut down in Astoria, where I am right now, for over a year and a half. And dozens of businesses had to shut down because those subway stations were shut down just for, the renovations that they had are all just like digital enhancements. It's not actually fixing the MTA. So, we got to get to the heart of it by taking on these developers to get these tax breaks.
All right. I know you just got a couple minutes here because you got to get to another interview. But lastly, what over the course of this campaign, because we spoke to you about a month or two ago, maybe leading up to this, what has your perspective on things changed at all? Are there some things that have become clearer that are more problematic than others as you have dug into this?
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating to see how the New York City Campaign Finance Board, while we do have a better system, it is still very, very, very hard for candidates who are grassroots to raise the money to be able to not only receive the matching funds, but also to be able to compete on stage. So the debate, you have to not only have gotten on the ballot, not only did you have to raise a certain amount of money, you had to spend a certain amount of money. And that is, I just think that's not very fair for democracy. I mean, sure, you want to make sure that the candidates are viable, but when the limits are as they are, it really does empower those who come from, law firms or developers or, in line with certain interests or institutions that can just, your boss says, can you bundle $250 checks? And so people who are coming from law firms have the partners of law firms telling their associates to give money, and then very quickly they're able to qualify for matching funds. Whereas our campaign has collected thousands of donations from New York, outside of New York, but it's split in half, just like all the other candidates. But we have way more small dollar donations, way more contributions than all the other candidates, and we have the lowest contribution. That's why it's taking us a little bit longer to get to matching funds. But at the end of the day, these are voters. These are people who are organizing on the streets. These are the people who are going to be voting in this low turnout election. And I think the biggest disappointment is that most people in New York don't even know that they have the public advocate, which is there to represent them, which is there to make sure that their interests are brought to the table against these special interests. And just one more thing to add, if anybody's on the fence here, every single New York City elected official has received developer money. Opponents in this race are playing a lot of tricks right now. They're using they're saying well, Nomi, she received $27 from a grandma who rents her basement to her grandson. But at the end of the day, my opponents have received tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars from the worst pay-to-play real estate developers like the Ratner family. And you don't get that money unless you sit down with the Ratners and you cut a deal. And I think, the press is not really reporting on that fairly. And part of the reason why the press is not reporting on our race, just like they don't report on Bernie Sanders or don't give AOC fair treatment, is because we go against their business model. We got more airtime than anybody else on that stage. And the press, New York Times, barely even mentioned us. So we just have to keep organizing. We have to keep talking to each other. I'm so grateful for your reporting, Sam, because you actually pay attention to the details and follow the money and know your history, and you're not bought by these folks who we really want to take on.
Well, Nomi, I wish you good luck. There's a link at majority.fm if people want to support your campaign. And it's Monday. Is that right? Is the deadline for
Monday? Is that the 11th? The 11th, yes, Monday. All
right, well, hang in
so
there.
Tell your friends, tell your family.
All right.
And then afterwards, come volunteer.
Good luck, Nomi. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Sam. Take care.
So, folks, that's the deal. If you live in New York City, you can donate, I guess, up. I don't know what the maximum is. It's like $2,000. But $250, the first $250 of that will be matched by the city if you're a New York City resident. And you got to get it in there now. So we have a link. We just tweeted it out. We also have it on the front page of the blog. We'll put it in the YouTube thing. And you donate $5, it's like you're donating $40. You donate $10, it's like you're donating $80. That's right. We can go around this is just like
winning.
This is
Stop,
honestly,
don't let the math get too complicated.
This is literally what we do at dinner with Mila and Saul.
You talk about donating to Nomiki?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. With Mila, it doesn't participate. But with Saul, I just keep everything is a math problem for him. He loves math. And that's probably where we're going to have our biggest fights.
Yeah, I was going to say, because we're pretty editorially opposed to math,
yeah.
I thought.
At one point, I'm just going to be like, if you insist on doing these type of, algebraic problems,
right?
You take it out of my house.
That would actually be amazing.
It's not going to happen in my house. My house, my rules.
Threaten their
no
kid
math.
about doing math.
No math.
That's awesome. That is new terrain in child abuse.
Yeah. So, folks, if you are contemplating giving money to Nomi in this public advocate race, do so. And again, for me, I think this came up the other day when we were talking about, somebody had asked us about Jumaane Williams, who I am, broadly speaking, very supportive of, and certainly was in his statewide race. But with all due respect to Nomi, she's a little bit of a bridge burner, and
it's like your highest form of respect for somebody.
Well, yes, but I mean, most people think like, oh, wait a minute, but it's true, and like she is willing to, not make friends in pursuit of what she thinks is the right thing to do. And in the context of this job, I have known some former public advocates before. In fact, we have some former Air America folk who have come into the office, as well as some former Majority Report. Well, one. Yes, one and one. All right. Kelly's here. Dorsey's here. We're going to wait to the fun half to get you guys on camera because I think people haven't seen Dorsey in ages, ever, maybe, on camera. And, but we, Dorsey, you were there, right? When we had the, we've had experience with another public advocate. I'm not going to say the name. I'm not going to say the name. All right. I don't want anybody to get turned green with envy because I'm not saying the name. But, and my experience of that guy was, here's a guy who took that job, who's going to do one or two things that are going to look showy, but he's making deals. In fact, he's not even making deals. He's going and having dinner almost multiple times a week with one of the biggest real estate developers in the city, his brother. And that's also why his brother was, oh, this is a good place to have my brother sitting in this job because I'm covered. And this is a problem in the city. So you need somebody who's willing to go in there and say, I know I probably don't have any future in Democratic politics. And therefore, I don't need to make friends with certain people. I don't need to be worried about offending certain people. And from my perspective, that's the type of person you want as public advocate in New York City. It is still a relatively new position and is one of those jobs where it will be what the person in the job makes it. And so that's the basis of my support. Again, head over to MajorityReportRadio.com or check out our Twitter feed. You will find a link. Let's take a quick break. Matthew Film Guy is still on the road. What? I know. That's why we're calling him up to find out what the hell is going on. We'll be right back after this. Ladies and gentlemen, on some Fridays, we play this.
Matthew the Film Guy is choosing your streams. Cassavetes on Netflix and other such themes. Maybe I'll watch one and learn a few things. Please recommend me a movie to stream. Matthew, please recommend me a movie to stream. Matthew, Film Guy.
There isn't. Okay.
You got to get them all.
Matthew, film guy. Now, when I texted you and asked if you could do this, I thought, surely by now Matthew is back from Boca Raton, and
Yep.
he has left the confines of his grandmother's compound there. He is drained everything that could be drained from Tequila Willie's, and he is back in Queens, resuming his duties. Anywhere from shooting corporate videos to directing comedy specials or teaching at the JCC Learning Annex elderly folks about film. And yet, no, you're on the world's greatest, longest vacation.
I agree. It has been the greatest vacation. Yeah, and we're wrapping it up here. I made a stop here, and I'm talking to you from wonderful Knoxville, Tennessee, where my sister lives with her husband and my baby niece. So I'm getting in some family time on the way home with Mary and the puppies here. So we're very close to returning. I had to come back by the 12th, which is when my next senior citizens film class starts. You know, I've been working remotely, but that one I got to be there for.
What, now, how long have you been gone for? You're already living the democratic socialist dream, aren't you?
I mean, you know, listen, there's a fine line between being freelance and being unemployed, you know, so with alienation confers freedom, you know, so I've been able to do a little bit of things that people tied down to a job don't have, and I'm going to take advantage of that. Yeah, I'm not going to apologize for that. No way.
Do you force your grandma to watch depressing Scandinavian movies too?
Well, first of all, it's actually my mother, who is now a grandmother herself, so it does technically fall under that rubric. And no, I don't force her. I did actually watch with my actual grandmother when she was with us. She was into these kinds of films, so she actually took me to see The Crying Game when I was 17. That was an amazing experience.
You went to see The Crying Game with your grandmother?
That's right.
Jesus
Neither
Christ.
of us knew what to expect, and then, boy, were we entertained.
All right.
But,
Sounds cool as hell.
Boy, were we entertained.
Yeah, I think my grandmother literally jumped out of her seat about 4 feet at the moment of truth in that movie. No spoilers, but it was quite the memorable bonding experience between my grandmother and myself.
Wait, you mean when it turns out they're dreaming?
My mother, she doesn't really care. We Mary and I managed to watch about a movie a day while we were down there, and my mother didn't really join us. She has her own life.
So what? So wait a second. So how long have you been gone?
Let's see. This is, calendars have just lost all meaning for me at this point. I want to say, I don't know, 6 weeks going on. It will be. We left 3 days before New Year's. So where are we now?
Man. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
don't be too jealous, Sam. You guys have done a lot of good work in my absence there. I've been keeping tabs on
I
you.
am
And
so
even though
jealous.
I'm listening to
I
you
can't
from
even
the beach.
begin to tell you how jealous I am to have that type of time to just travel around. Now, but I'm going to try and fight through my resent. And
at least on this front.
On this front. What did you sent me this, like a film box? What letter box? What is this?
I believe a couple times ago we talked about how I transcribed my list I had of every single movie I saw since 1995. Well, this is the social media movie sharing website where you can list those things and follow your friends, and you can see what they're looking at and what they're watching, and it's got reviews, and I haven't done too many of those yet, but it's called Letterboxd, and it's like a social platform for sharing movies that you've watched. And so I just wanted to put it out there to have any chats with other fellow film guys who sometimes find me on Twitter. You can find me on there.
Now, this recent activity, I notice, Won't You Be My Neighbor? Is that you? Did you see the Mr. Rogers movie? What did you think?
That's right. That was one of the ones I caught up on that.
What did you think of that? Did you give that a 4-star? Or is that
listen, that's one of the ones that's really hard to separate the filmmaking from my emotional connection to the content. I thought it was serviceable filmmaking. I mean, they did a good job kind of laying out kind of the history, and they found a lot of great, rare archival footage that I had never seen. But you got to understand, I was definitely raised by Mr. Rogers. So I appreciate it especially, and as a film guy that I'm trying to fight this fight about attention spans and the ability to see things that aren't super fast and multiple cuts per second. His philosophy, I think, really jibes with mine, that you need to be able to have the attention to absorb certain things. And to the extent that you don't, you miss like entire chunks of what it is to be alive, what it is to be human. So
how
on
much
that
did
sense,
you cry when
really
watching
happy.
this?
You're really saying something,
I
man.
mean, two or three times for sure. I mean, sort of tears throughout, but like a few real just like gut punches of just, just because it's like also a sense memory, hearing those songs that I just remembered like all the lyrics to. It was like very programmed in my DNA. Like it literally could be the first TV show I ever watched. So that was something. And it's just amazing to see what he was an advocate for. He had I didn't realize that he had such a sort of definitive kind of teaching philosophy behind it. His sense of rhetoric and what he wanted to put out there, I thought was really sophisticated, which, as a 3-year-old, I couldn't have grasped.
I mean, I agree with that assessment. I didn't think it was such a great movie, but it was pretty sentimental. It also, the timing of it couldn't be better, right? I mean, it was almost released as sort of the antithesis to Donald Trump in some respects.
Has a movie ever made you cry, Sam?
I cry.
Yeah.
Every movie I ever see on an airplane, I cry. Like
really?
I cry. There's something about
the altitude or something.
There's something about the altitude. Like I remember, what is it? Armageddon? Is that the one with Liv Tyler and
Aerosmith?
And who is the other the guy from Die Hard? Bruce Willis.
I
Right?
have no idea.
Bruce Willis,
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi,
I wept like a baby
On a
during
plane.
that. Yeah. No, it was on a plane. It was Armageddon.
All right.
There's no movie I can see on a plane that I won't cry at.
What about at a lower altitude?
Lower altitude? No.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to cry.
So-
I'm not going to cry.
Below sea level.
No, I cry. I cry at movies. I mean, I saw Ralph Wrecks the Internet, and I was very concerned that Ralph was not going to get back.
He wrecks the internet. That's messing with your business.
Well,
model,
he
too,
gets
so.
back. He gets
Does that
back,
affect
but
Patreon?
Vanellope, I was afraid, was not going to make it back, and then it was sad. It was sad. I'm not going to lie. It was sad.
But listen, I cry at all kinds of things, TV commercials, if they hit the right note. So it's not that, there's crying when you're sentimentally manipulated, and then there's kind of like a more cleansing, deep, healing kind of crying. It's
Right.
rare to get that one.
I don't get that
but
one.
it's pleasurable to go through the sad feelings of a kind of a sentimental cry, I think.
Totally.
When there was that big Mega Millions, and I watched the broadcast of that, and I didn't win, and I was very upset.
I bet you cried.
I was very upset with
Yeah,
that one.
yeah. I'm sure Donald Trump cries, when something doesn't go his way. He kicks his feet and stamps his feet, that kind of thing. There's that kind of crying too.
I'm looking at the films here that you've listed. Sicario, that one. Sicario. Sorry, you only gave that a 3-star. Now that is the basis of Donald Trump's fevered dreams about what's happening at the border.
Sicario 2.
Or
I
maybe
think it's
Sicario
a sequel,
too.
actually, because
I
I
think
didn't recognize what he was
2.
describing yet. Yeah, that was good, just as like a drug dealer.
Is that a movie
CIA
I should be
shooting
watching?
people
That
thing. Not a
sounds like
great
The
movie.
first one you would like. It's a good
Sicario
movie.
sounds like that's my kind of movie.
Sicario 2 is not so great.
Yeah, it's just like a well done kind of action movie with some minor political overtones. It's well done for what it is, but I wouldn't call that like a great movie.
That's my kind of airplane movie. No, I'll cry like
Yeah,
a baby.
you like
watching it,
well
but-
done, but not great. That's what that is. I always think of you saying you like Ronin, with De Niro.
Yeah,
like
it
that's
was
right in there
okay.
with
It
that.
was okay. Yeah, not great, but okay. Yeah.
Oh, you're backing away from that one? You're backing away from that
I
one?
never
You-
said it
you
was
always said that
great.
one of your-
I never said it was great, but I
Okay.
definitely said it was worth watching.
Okay, I thought that was like you kept saying to me, send me more movies like that.
Well, yeah, of that genre.
Okay, that's in there. That one's in there, Sicario.
So do you think Mr. Rogers is a comrade? Because I kind of do.
Well, I was fascinated to hear that I didn't realize he was a minister and that he was a Republican, so those two things
maybe
I
not.
thought were like pretty interesting information. And it didn't mean that he necessarily, like I didn't hear him say like, healthcare is not a right, like he didn't say anything that obvious. And his demeanor in that one
say all the
famous
children
hearing
should
where
have
he
access.
fought for access. Access is what's important, kiddies. No, but he's really an old style, conservative, where it's like human nature is still something that you respect. You're not trying to corporatize and commodify every child as they come through the school to prison pipeline. So that was shocking. But I think on the, like, would he vote for Bernie? Yeah, I think he probably would vote for Bernie at this stage if he was around.
It's super interesting because I guess one of my DSA comrades had a similar experience to you watching the film, Matthew, and now he's sort of forming the basis of inspiration for this new neighborhood councils project that we're doing to try to kind of combat the atomization that occurs in modern urban life.
Got to build that wall.
Sounds so good. I mean, that's what he was all about. Won't you be my neighbor? Joining, connecting with fellow humans. I mean, there was a lot of great examples of stuff in there that I didn't necessarily remember, like the way he kind of normalized the African-American cop as his friend. They put their feet in the pool together, little subtle nods to just say, like, I'm not going to, hang a lantern on it, as they say, but I'm just going to show these people and things that maybe are controversial in a way that I just feel is comports with my worldview of, like, we're all great. We're all worth something despite, like, what we do.
All right.
And you know what? I'll also say I had time on my vacation to listen to the audiobook of a great book that I had read years ago called Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. Do you guys know about this book?
I read that book.
Matt, put this one on your list.
No, I've read that book.
Matt.
Neil Postman actually founded my department that I went to at NYU. The media studies
department.
That's
fantastic.
Yep.
That's awesome.
I
just feel like Mr. Rogers and he
like,
have
where's
a lot
my
to
board?
say about,
I want a pretentious drop.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, get that one in on him while you can. Yeah, I appreciate that. But I want to say, like, I feel like that's kind of what I'm fighting for in these little movie segments we do, like the ability to say, like, yes, there's the TV kind of stuff, there's the TV movies, there's entertainment, but we can't lose sight of the value at some point of trying to use your brain in a different, and I would consider it deeper, kind of more difficult way. I struggle with it too. If I watched a lot of TV and then I try to watch a movie like Winter Sleep, which is on there by Nuri Bilge Ceylan, which I loved, but the rhythms are really slow. The personal interactions are not necessarily that obvious in the kind of expositional way that you're used to in some of the other shorter form storytelling. So in the same way that Neil Postman kind of decries the death of the written word, I'm here to say, like, these kind of harder movies, call me pretentious or whatever you are. I think it's actually an important thing to fight for, to keep alive, even in some small corner, because it's not like I'm some purist where I don't watch the TV and the kind of trashy movies and so on. But, I'm trying to add into the conversation, like, something is lost by the inability to concentrate on something for more than 30 seconds.
What was that?
Exactly.
I couldn't help myself.
Exactly.
Now,
Sorry.
Hello.
Well,
Hi.
I got to tell you, Matthew, that's all well and good. I'm sort of convinced, though, that recorded stuff is over. We peaked. It's done. It's about to wrap up. I'm now only live theater.
Only live theater?
Yep. That's it for me.
Good for you, Sam. Good for you. If you can afford that, that's great. I think
Benjamin paid for me. Benjamin took me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Now I
put that Arby's money to good use.
Exactly. I went to go see True West last night. And
oh, you lucky! That's my favorite play. I'd have to say, American at least favorite play.
It's funny because I don't see a lot of theater, but I did, and I didn't realize it. I got Benjamin was like, "Let's go see True West," and I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "The play," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yes." And our friend Gary Wilms is in it. There's only 4 people in the play.
Yeah.
And
did an O'Neill play? Who wrote it?
No, Shepard. And
Sam Shepard.
No idea.
And
Malkovich and Sinise did the kind of quintessential PBS TV version.
And that's what Malkovich made Malkovich, really.
Yeah.
But I saw the Philip Seymour Hoffman Riley version.
John C. Reilly. I saw that one too.
In the round.
Do you remember who was playing who in that one? Because they switched roles.
Yeah, they switched every night. I don't remember. In fact, I barely had remembered that I had seen it. And then we were walking to the play last night. Wait a second. I've seen this before in the round and or 3/4, I guess it was. And I don't know who I went with or when. It was probably 20 years ago. And
2000, I think it was.
Yeah, so I don't remember any of it. But I saw the version last night. It was okay. Ethan Hawke and then this other dude. And
Paul Dano.
Yeah,
you should occasionally write short
It was
reviews. That could be good for.
Well,
yeah.
I
It
don't.
was okay. There was Ethan Hawke and someone else, but
I
man,
thought I didn't see it
and-
before, but
and
I saw it.
Benjamin paid my ticket, but I
Ethan-
liked John Malkovich years ago.
Ethan.
Thank you.
The
That's my
end.
review.
Ethan Hawke was good.
Sorry.
That guy
I'm
Paul
sorry.
Dano, apparently he's very good in some movie.
Dan Bongino, was
no,
it?
no,
Oh,
he's
okay.
in the Escape from
Elmira.
Elmira. Is that what it is? Escape from
Danamora.
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 Everybody
I have
loves
yet to
that
see but
show.
that's
I haven't
Yeah, I haven't
seen
seen
I
that.
need to see that.
Everybody
That
loves
was my beat for a while at Death and Taxes, by the way, writing about the big dick fugitive.
Oh, I had no idea about any of what you're talking about. I missed all of
Yeah,
it.
that was a
but-
weird
Writer
thing.
Quite the
That was a
story.
weird thing.
But I don't know. I didn't find I wasn't. You know, I'm not gonna get too deep into this, but I wasn't blown away
Oh, by all means. By all means.
by the acting. Sometimes you know you gotta have something under the hood.
Yeah, absolutely. I listen, I know what you mean. That
And if
sums
it's
it
not,
up.
if you don't have anything under the hood,
Paul
then-
Dano was in Okja, though.
Fair
Paul
enough.
Dano was in Okja, the movie about the pig I recommended a few times
Well,
ago. So
movies are
he's done some
different.
good work.
Movies are different
Oh, of
than
course.
doing a
Of course,
play.
yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that should be the column you write.
movies are different.
Movies different. I see.
Movies are different. Now, okay. So Matthew
so
Film
right,
Guy,
though.
you go from Boca Raton to where are you in
Tennessee,
Knoxville,
Knoxville.
Tennessee?
Well, we went up the west coast of Florida to visit some old friends from film school in Sarasota first, then
Pensacola? Did you go to
Clearwater.
Pensacola?
No, we drove past it. But stopped in Sarasota, went up to Tampa or Clearwater, really. Then a little bit more inland, Zephyr Hills. A friend of Mary's that we know was there, and then we drove up here to Knoxville. So we did a couple days, you know, as we drove up.
Is
and the next thing
Clearwater
we're
the
gonna do is we're gonna
Scientology
spend a night.
place?
You're living the life, Matthew.
It's great. We got like our Mazdas, like our Conestoga. It all fits in there. You know, it's good square footage, and everything we need is just one rest stop away, really.
Oh my
Ooh,
God.
did you visit that town with all the psychics, Casadega?
Whoa, no! Oh my God, how did we miss that? That's like catnip to Mary. Where's that?
You
You
gotta
could
go
have
back.
known-
It's somewhere in Florida, I believe. There was a Bright Eyes album named after it, which is why I know about it.
You could
Take
have
a few more
Oh,
days.
okay, and that's why I don't.
you could have
probably.
had all
But
your
I will-
answers to this interview already answered, and you wouldn't have. You
Oh
could
my
have just
God!
like
But
mailed
where's
it
the fun
in.
in that? Where's
Imagine
the
the
fun in
psychic. Then Sam will say he didn't see the movie.
Yeah. What?
Then he'll complain about his sleep schedule.
So now,
Just anticipating.
Matthew, Film Guy, was there anything adventurous, or was it just we just drove around Florida and saw some people we knew and then went to Knoxville, or was there I don't know, did you get into a fight with a trucker at a truck stop? Did you
No, we
go
brought our
down-
2 dogs into every establishment that we visited and met with mostly approving stares. Our 2 dogs, Dudley and Mabel, they basically come with us everywhere. And I think that was the most adventurous thing we had. Like, we'd be outside like, is this place going to be cool? Let's go in and find out. And we're just like, we barge in and people go like, oh, cute dogs. And then we're like, okay, great, that worked.
Now, are you going to like Piggly Wigglies? They got Piggly Wigglies down there?
No, they have Publix and Winn-Dixie, I think. No, we draw the line at the grocery store. We know they're not wanted there.
Oh, all right. Because the Piggly Wiggly, that is a fun. That's. The
I don't know.
best.
I know Publix.
They're just basically like Stewart's up in, I guess they got them in New York, or Cumbies.
Oh, okay.
Cumberland
Oh, like a
Farms
Cumbies. I know
in
Cumbies, of course,
Massachusetts. But
Cumbies.
Piggly Wiggly's
You know,
are
we
fun.
did watch. Mary and I did watch Mississippi Burning, and so it made us a little paranoid
Right.
driving through the South. You know, like hey, Jew boy, who you got there with you? You know,
I thought
like
you were.
but
I
it
thought
turns
you
out
were Southern Jewry, Matthew.
There
Yeah.
absolutely is. But like we're driving through some of these more, let's say, remote areas on the highway going up there. So we try to just play it cool.
All right, but
Speed
nothing
limit,
like that
total
went
speed
down.
limit.
That's
Trying
too
to
bad.
play it
That would have
cool.
been an interesting story.
I'm so sorry to disappoint you that I didn't spend a night in like a county jail.
I'm sorry to hear that. I am very sorry to
yeah.
hear that. All right,
Next,
well, with that
next
said,
time I will commit some low-level felony.
I have no doubt that you did. I just don't think that you got caught. I just want to make
No
that.
comment.
I want to clarify on that. Now, so Film Guy Matthew, now that you're, I know that you've been in vacation mode, but put your.
I have been doing. Let me just say, I have been doing some work on the great Ted Alexandro's podcast, A Little Bit Me, which I urge everyone to go to iTunes and check out if they want to hear the insider view from this comedian.
All this guy does is ever talk about Ted Alexandro. Jesus Christ.
Well,
Matthew.
he's the guy I'm working for right now. So let me pump a little bit. I thought you respected the game, Michael.
I do respect the game. That's a
That
fair
he
point.
does. He
All right,
does.
talk about him more.
Yeah,
I stand corrected.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to put that out there because
Michael wants to know where his vig is.
Right.
Anyways, so all right. So
we'll talk about it.
What?
So I've been doing that.
Well, okay. What would you like to recommend to us to view? I'm going to put it right into my
from Denmark.
In the vein,
it's incest and capitalism. All right, sorry. Go ahead. I jumped the gun.
I would see that movie in a heartbeat.
I know you would.
But
oh, dude, do you know? Wait a second. Do you know there's an Elaine
Yeah.
May film festival going on up here?
I do. I'm missing it. I've seen all the movies already, but I would go see it in a heartbeat. She's definitely one of my all-time favorites.
Okay.
Listeners of this segment have probably heard me mention her a lot. It's must-see stuff.
Okay.
A New Leaf.
Well, I don't want you to talk about it.
Heartbreak Kid.
It was just
Mikey
dropping
and
that in
Nikki is probably my all-time favorite movie of any kind.
That's great. But
Also
let's get
Ishtar,
back to
and
what
then
we
some
were
of the
doing.
more sort of obscure ones.
Okay.
Say again?
Okay. So your movie recommendation of the week. We got to get going. Let's get to it.
Okay. I want everyone to go see one of the great war films of all time. It's harrowing. It's brutal. It's sort of surreal. It's
Thin Red Line?
called Come and See by L.M. Klimov, if I'm saying his name right. And it was made in 1985, and it's basically about the Nazis' brutal march through Belarus and the kind of partisans that fought back there. And it's told through the point of view of a 13-year-old boy who starts off saying, like, I'm going to go defend my village. And then within the first 10 minutes, his village is, like, brutally massacred. And it's just so batshit crazy. It's told in a semi kind of documentary style, but a little bit of the sort of Tarkovskian moving camera, slow cinema style, but intermittently just like totally surreal and really just like shocking.
Come
and see. It's a Russian film, and it's available streaming on Vudu, but it's also available on DVDs everywhere and all your alternate film websites.
Voodoo. Okay. All right. There it is. February. It's release date 1987. It was first released in New York by L.M. Kilmov. All right. Great. Well, Matthew Film Guy, want to wish you a safe journey home for the rest of your trip, and I hope that it gets, hope it's not too much longer. It really is annoying that you're driving around for 7-8 weeks, just cruising around.
You can relax. I'll be home on Monday, so I'll be back there
I
freezing my
appreciate
ass
that.
off with the best with all of you.
All right.
Ted
well, you missed it
Alexandra
really
needs
cool.
you, man.
Yeah. Matthew Film Guy, always a pleasure.
Same here, guys. Take care.
Okay, folks, we're going to head into the fun half of the program, wherein we will have more fun. We have some video of Candace Owen apparently had some comments on nationalism and Hitler. I'm sure that were quite measured and learned.
That.
Yes, I'm interested in seeing that and hearing that. Also, we have some... Brandon Straka is going to run against AOC. That's going to be very exciting.
He's the one
person.
person.
I'm so torn between
He's the
not
one-
wanting to reward him with attention
One
and please
person.
do that. Please do that.
He-
Do that.
He also said a fringe left-wing train is infiltrating the government, and
Right.
he's the only one that can reverse it.
Right. That's another questionable word choice.
It's definitely a mixed metaphor.
Yeah, that's a
Definitely
mixed metaphor to say the least. But he does, in his own words, choose his words very consciously.
He's the only one who's going to stop that.
He's a
He's got a
poet.
creative lexicon, all right?
Let's apathetically steamroll over that in the fun half.
And Sean Spicer
Is drunk.
finally
He is
gets on television,
lit.
completely
Spicer.
wasted.
He is lit.
Oh, we got a lot to talk about. And more. We will take your phone calls. We may take your IMs. Of course, it's Friday. We're going to run out of time soon.
Oh, very much
And don't forget, you can support this program by going to jointhemajority.report.com. Jointhemajority.report.com for just pennies a day. You can support this program and also get the fun half content. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. MajorityReportRadio.com. You will also find the link to Nomiki Konst to support her run for public advocate in New York. Not much time to do so. And Michael, today is Friday, which means that at the beginning of the week was Monday, and the day that follows that is Tuesday. However, this week, the Michael Brooks Show was on Thursday.
Right. And it was a great show with Brianna Joy Gray and Jeffrey Halper. Check it out. You can watch the whole thing at the Michael Brooks Show YouTube channel. And, of course, get the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS.
Jamie?
Yeah, so this week on the Antifada, we did a collaborative episode with some of our...
Crossover.
Well, no, because it wasn't a crossover. It was just a bunch of our excellent listeners, most of whom have been with us since the beginning, who came into the studio and helped us make a pretty cool episode with their own conspiracy theories about the various parts of American life that Vladimir Putin is messing with and subverting democracy around.
I can't believe that was this week. I feel like that happened like 4 weeks ago.
It's because we took some time off in the middle and we did a live stream, and it's been very intense. Also, on Monday, we're dropping a bonus for all of our patrons, all of our treasured patrons. Andy is still in Mexico, and he caught up with Blair Taylor of the Institute for Social Ecology at Puerto Vallarta Bear Weekend, which is exactly what it sounds like, wherein they talked about Murray Bookchin, the libertarian socialist experiment happening in Rojava, and the growing network of radical municipalism building counterpower in the U.S.
That is not what it sounds like.
Oh, I mean, I guess it depends what you think about when you hear the word bear. I think of like a bunch of big hairy gay men having a party.
Oh, I thought it was literally bears. I don't know, but that's what, when someone says, oh, no, it is what it sounds like. Oh, okay, bears.
Apparently, Murray Bookchin is huge in the bear community.
Who'd have thunk it? Who Murray Bookchin is?
Google him.
Okay, I will Google this.
He's. I know you don't like the term libertarian socialist, so I'll call him an anarcho-communist instead.
Thank you.
Very influential.
Matt?
Yeah, Literary Hangover. Coming soon, I think next week, will be The Unparalleled Adventures of One Hans Fall by Edgar Allan Poe, which is maybe one of the first sci-fi stories ever.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Edgar Allan Poe may have started sci-fi as well as starting detective fiction.
Is that right?
Yep.
And you don't? Are you like working for anybody who might want to promote this guy, Edgar Allan Poe? Because I hear he's coming back.
He is.
Everybody's
more
talking
and more
about
people have been recognizing him.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to hitch my trailer to that bandwagon, I guess.
It reminds me to send out the Majority Report contributor disclosure forms. Make sure you're not promoting something that you're getting kickbacks from.
Thank you, Kelly.
Or you're not promoting something that you don't get kickbacks from. Kelly, you what?
She's a big Literary Hangover fan.
Yeah, that's what he was just talking about, the Literary Hangover.
Oh, yeah, she's actually a patron of mine.
Wow.
Very nice, Kelly. Very nice.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Also on the show, maybe we'll get Kelly and Dorsey to say hello. Generations collide. This is like a... like a weird, generation.
Feels like the last show ever.
Yeah, this is it.
Maybe
All right, folks.
Bender too.
Hopefully, we'll be here on Monday, but we should be. All right, quick break. Head into the fun half. 646-257-3920 is the number. We'll be right back after this.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back, 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 back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back, back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back, 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 back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back, 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 back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back, back, back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
Psych. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Almost says what?
What?
Almost says what? Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back, 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 back. And the Africans are black, 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 black Africans. And the alpha males are back, 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 back. And the Africans are black, 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 black.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back, back. Africans are black, black. Alpha males are back, back. Africans are black, black.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy. Pussy.
We are back. This is the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start with this clip of Howard Schultz, shall we? Because this is pretty fun. This guy...
I think you need to.
This guy is going to... I think he's going to run. Despite the fact that he just... there's no... Let me put it this way. There's no way a month ago he's sitting with his consultants, Steve Schmidt, Bill Burton, who knows who else. And incidentally, we're talking Steve Schmidt and Bill Burton, they're getting like, not just, they're getting Central Park West apartment money.
Ugh. Like,
they're getting millions of dollars to do this. And Bill Burton used to work for, what is it, SDK Knickerbocker?
Still does.
No,
he's
on
leave of absence. He's the head
now, here's the funny part.
of the Cali office of that
This
firm.
story that came out the other day where people have been going after Starbucks, and SDK is trying to convince Democrats to lay off Starbucks because it apparently, even though Schultz is no longer there, apparently he's close enough that it's starting to pinch a little bit.
If the only outcome of this is that liberals boycott Starbucks, that's going to be amazing.
That's going to be, sadly, I don't think it's going to be the only outcome, because I think this guy's going to run. And because my point being that 3 months ago when he was sitting around with his incredibly overpaid consultants, there is no way they had a projection. I'm sure they came up with different scenarios. What things are going to look like after we do our rollout? I am convinced that no matter how diligent they were, did they come up with a projection that would have covered how badly this rollout went. There's no way they said, well, it's also conceivable after all this, like 4% of both parties are interested in you.
And independence.
And independence. That we know is not going to happen.
The
and
triad.
It's not like you're going to go on all these shows and everybody's going to be like universally pan every performance. Look, you're going to be able to go to places like Purdue University at least, and you'll give a speech. And people are going to respond really well to you. In fact, here is that speech.
Under President Daniels, the cost of an education here will be less expensive in nominal dollars in 2020 than it was in 2012. Congratulations. Got to clap for that.
Please clap.
You know,
There you
anytime
go.
you use the phrase nominal dollars, you are reaching the heights of rhetorical power.
8 years later, nominal dollars. Much harder for you to get those dollars.
I want everyone to have the same nominal dollars in that grand future.
You know, they're all just, you know why the hesitation of clapping was? Because it was like, we're all in debt.
Right.
To
It's
go
like,
here.
thank you, dude.
Also-
We're marginally less effed, I guess, using terminology that we don't understand than before. Thanks.
Yeah, and like we're still experiencing like we're between those two different points.
Right.
Right.
Instead
Right,
of
yeah.
The people
Right,
who
that's
are
also
sitting in the
true.
room with him.
Instead of leaving this university with somewhere between $60,000 and $120,000 worth of debt, we're going to be leaving this university with somewhere between $59,000 and $119,000 worth of debt. And
In nominal dollars.
That's right.
Actually, Brandon made a really good point about this, though, that like a lot of people, like we said last night when we played it, like, oh, this is his Jeb Bush moment, but it's not, because it's the difference between like a cocky billionaire schmuck, because he's saying like, come on, like that's good, do it, versus the like, I've been totally beaten down by life and my family and my mom and my brother, and I'd appreciate a clap. So there's, he's still,
I think you guys are just being haters right now.
Little
I think
swag.
it's a really great example of exactly how inspiring the centrist message can be.
Yeah, it's super inspiring. And if you don't get inspired by it, we're going to demand you do.
It's un-American to not
it's
clap for that.
It's un-American to not be inspired. It says the man who brings us together by calling AOC un-American on sort of like 5-minute intervals.
This clip is also pretty fun. Apparently, here's let's introduce this as a riddle. What do you do if you have been exposed as being a white nationalist, as the leader of a group of thugs who are currently winding their way through the New York City justice system? That you have been alienated from your neighbors because they don't like your brand of supremacy, of misogyny, of flippancy about these things. What do you do? Well, you, of course, blame the Southern Poverty Law Center, and you sue them.
Make a super interesting sartorial choice.
And you sue them, and how do you announce that lawsuit? You dress up as a plantation owner and go in front of their offices and make this proclamation and explain why the Southern Poverty Law Center is wrong. There is no racism in America. And how do you prove it? Well, you have a special insight because you're an immigrant yourself.
And it depicts this picture of America, which is basically the worst of the 1930s coast to coast. And I know as an immigrant myself, coming in from Canada, I would go to a 7-Eleven in the South, and I'd see like an old black guy in line with a white lady, and I go, uh-oh, we got trouble here. These two hate each other. We're in the center of hatred. We're in the eye of the hate storm. And she'd turn around and go, hey, Isaac, what's going on with your mom now? Is she okay? Yeah, she's not okay, but she's getting better, but she's still bedridden, and we were very worried. Oh, that's terrible. And there'll be a gay guy in the lineup going, hey, guys, are you guys going to be talking this whole time? Because I want to go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead. You go ahead, Charles. And I go, wait, I thought this was the land of hatred. I saw the SPLC hate map. It looks like it's a dangerous place to be. And this is not just a misnomer. It's not just a lie. It's not just a myth. It's a dangerous precedent to set Because what
Pause
they
it.
do is
He's using precedent wrong, but that's not it. That's not relevant here. Just the idea that he has this one anecdote, which
totally happened.
Well,
and then a gay Chinese guy said, "I would like my cola refilled."
But even if that anecdote did happen, the idea that racism can't exist if a black guy and a white guy and a gay guy got along in line at the Piggly Wigglies is a fundamental misunderstanding of the problem in society. Not to mention, I love the fact that he comes in with this pre-existing notion, which I guess when he was an immigrant in Canada had this idea because he kept reading the Southern Poverty Law Center site so much that he went in there and was like, oh, I'm in the South and I'm anticipating there's going to be some friction here. This is just a guy who didn't read any history about anything and doesn't understand how racism works. But he's so blind to the idea of prejudice that he will now give you an example of prejudice and offer it as an example of something that is not prejudice. Continue.
not just a misnomer, it's not just a lie, it's not just a myth, it's a dangerous precedent to set. Because what they do is they cast this wide net of everyone's a Nazi and they start destroying lives. And I'm thinking of the one that pops into my head is Jennifer Morse of the Ruth Institute, and she runs a group that says, if we're adopting, can we maybe focus on mom-dads first before we do gay adoption? And that became, she hates homosexuals.
Now, here's the thing.
It wasn't a strong opening.
No, like, I don't know who she is. I don't know anything of that story. I just know what he's just told us. And here is what Gavin still does not seem to understand. When you say, instead of focus, or, why can't we start with moms and dads before we go to gay adoption? In other words, why can't we start with moms and dads before we go to dads and dads or moms and moms? In other words, why can't we just say that if you're gay and you're in a loving relationship that would otherwise be really helpful for a kid who's looking to be adopted, why can't we just say that gays are going to be like in the second tier of people, like almost like second-class citizens? Why is that prejudice? Why is that prejudice?
You can't say anything anymore, and now they won't have fun with us last month.
There's
totally
there is
unfair.
Exactly no data that shows that gay parents are in some way less helpful to kids than straight parents, adoptive parents. There's no data, none whatsoever. But let's just do that, and that's not a reflection of prejudice. He doesn't even quite get that. Now, just to add to the absolute cluelessness that Gavin McGinnis shows, not just that he's out there trying to argue he's not hateful wearing a plantation outfit. Now, of course, wearing a plantation suit does not make you a racist. It just means that you either have no awareness of the racist history within this country, or that you're just trying to make a point that in some way like, oh, I'm going to do this despite the fact that I'm trying to establish that I'm not racist. In other words, I'm going to do something offensive just for the fun of it as I'm trying to make an argument that I'm actually a sincere person who doesn't. But here is where he's completely clueless. So clueless that it's
awesome.
Funny.
Actually, let's be real.
Here is at the start of his speech, he makes some really bad jokes. Like, honestly, like if you go into a Chinese restaurant that you're doing stand up and a road gig and you look around, you would make a series of bad jokes like he does. But then he lands on one that is just completely clueless.
Thank you, Ali. That's it. I've never been here before. I've never seen the SPLC's headquarters. And it looks like, not Luke Skywalker, but it looks like Darth Vader's son's apartment. Doesn't it? It looks like an evil empire. What is with the exterior there? It looks bomb-proof or something. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it looks bomb-proof. Wonder why the Southern Poverty Law Center might feel like they should have a bomb-proof headquarters.
Oh my God! I mean, it just workshops of just. Oh man, he's just so relentlessly not funny.
And you know what? He used to be funny. I will hand that to him.
Wow.
Excuse me.
He used to be kind of funny, kind of
Where?
offensive. Like the Weiss do's and don'ts. They were kind of funny.
I don't care about offensive. I've just never seen him be funny. I'm
But
actually
he has
fascinated.
fallen
Send me links.
so far.
I have not seen anything from this guy.
And like it really makes me feel good on a personal level because this is someone who's come after me personally as well as someone whose politics I just despise on a very basic level. It's been one of the great joys of the past 10 years of my life to watch this person fall from someone who, you know, could more or less dictate the terms of what was cool and what was funny and what we just all had to shut our mouths and put up with if you wanted to have a career in media, to now this living purgatory where he's self-aware enough to know that he's surrounded by losers and he's never going to be cool again.
Yeah.
Hey, get a load of this. This place looks like it's set up to withstand bomb blasts.
Right.
It's fucking weird.
What are they doing? Expected people.
What are they doing? What are they? Yeah, it's interesting architecture choice there, guys, but not exactly welcoming.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
you'd think an anti-hate group would have a nice exterior.
Yeah, I thought you were supposed to be so much against.
Where's the
hate.
transparency, guys?
Yeah, where's the openness? I thought it was all open arms.
What's the opposite of hate? Friendly? That doesn't seem friendly.
Doesn't seem friendly to me at all. You know what is friendly is the Winn-Dixie in Mississippi in 2010 where there was a bisexual Filipino-Brazilian guy and he held open the door for a black lady, so racism doesn't exist.
Wow.
Anyways, dressed like Don Johnson to deliver my you've ruined my life by calling me a white supremacist lawsuit.
Well, he's trying to prove some sort of point.
Man. The
right?
only thing that Gavin McInnes could do to save his career would be get with Katrina Pearson.
He's going to dress up like a plantation owner and liberals are going to get all outraged about it. And then he's going to say, oh, look at this dumb outrage culture and this liberal hypocrisy. But like, both things can be true.
I think
like,
that's possible.
Outrage culture could be bad, and it could also be bad to dress like a plantation owner.
But wait a second. I just want to say this. Let me just finish it.
Culture.
Let me.
Like, what are you doing? Dude?
Let me just make this absolutely clear. We did not play this video because we're outraged about Gavin. We played this video as, on one level, just on a human level, it's so pathetic that we felt it was funny.
We played this video because we like punching down.
Yeah, and
that's why.
No, it's also a cautionary tale.
And I'm very offended.
It's a cautionary tale. If you it's a cautionary
you've
tale.
founded a hipsters 90 media entity that is no longer relevant in 2019. But had a lot of currency in the Obama era and does like weird drug documentaries where first you're hanging out with cool cartel guys, but in the end you're basically just pawning off DEA talking points. Don't become a white supremacist. It could go bad.
Fuck you forever. That's my common quote I say. It's fuck you forever. We're done.
There you go. All right, let's move on to one more clip. And then we'll
That's
take
his
some phone
finest
calls.
work.
This one I haven't seen. This just came across the transom. Candace
Straight off the wire.
Candace Owens there with Charlie Kirk. Is that Charlie Kirk there?
That's him.
There he is. He's got a haircut.
He's recovered.
He's recovered. They're in the UK, and as you know, they've Turning Points has had some problems in the UK. They have been mocked mercilessly on social media. They have been parodied. There have been parody accounts that have mocked them and made fun of them, which is, of course, as you know, against the Constitution. But
they don't have the First Amendment over there,
so
be
do
careful.
not have, in Britain, they don't have the same Constitution, so you're allowed to mock them there and make fun of them. You're not actually silencing them. And here is Candace Owens. When you go to overseas and when you're in Europe, you got to show that you've got some bona fides when it comes to understanding European history. So she's going to give a crack at it.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism. In thinking about how it could go bad down the line, I don't really have an issue with nationalism. I really don't. I think that it's okay. It's important to retain your country's identity and to make sure that what's happening here, which I think is incredibly worrisome in terms of the decrease in the birth rate that we're seeing in the UK, is what you kind of want to avoid. So I don't have anything I have no problems with nationalism. It's globalism that I try to avoid.
It is just like the Jesse Owens thing said.
Wait, so
can we just play the first part of that again? Because, and I just want to say, like, there may be some members of our society that might be offended a little bit by what Hitler wanted to do, even if he just wanted to do it in Germany.
My domestic policies are fine.
Yeah, I just...
No, by the way, I really do.
It was
There's a huge
our Jews and our homosexuals and our gypsies, right?
But very cool.
We're not messing with anyone outside of Germany, just ours.
Thomas Friedman Hitler, that's a pretty good character that she just gave me there.
I was talking to
flattened borders. I was talking with a Japanese Toyota executive about how the earth is flattening. So the Jew here must be killed elsewhere in order for supply chains to be synchronized.
I mean, she really doesn't have a problem with Hitler. What Hitler did within his borders, it was just his imperial
It was his
designs.
globalism.
It was his globalist. Yeah, here, let's just one more time.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets the definition gets poisoned by elitists
Jews.
that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism.
One of the things we need
about
to have
how it could go
the
bad
things
down the
work
line,
well
I don't
in
really
Germany
have
is
an
just
issue
to
with
get rid of
nationalism.
the
I really don't. I think that
cancers.
it's okay. It's
That's
important
the problem.
to retain.
We had too many cancers. The trains, they ran slowly because of the elitists, the Jews.
Social
and the
justice
gypsies.
warriors.
How
Yes,
did this Jesse Owens thing learn to think like this? We should do experiments on her.
It's a real problem. But what we need to do is just keep it inside of Germany. And then it's okay.
If you keep it inside the borders, then
One of the problems we have with Germany is that our bloodlines are a little problematic. Germans not having enough babies. Some of the other types having too many babies.
The world is
We just
flat.
need to
We're
figure
in
it out.
hyper-globalization.
We just need to
You can't
figure out what the hell is going
You
on.
need to figure out what the hell is going on here. But you cannot solve a problem in one place without another.
Yeah,
it's a global economy. My friend Yatishi Yamanada from Toyota Motors told me when we were playing golf. He said the world is flattening and hyperlinks. So we need to kill the Jews there
Candace,
too.
can we talk a little bit? I just, you may not want to go too hard on everything would have been fine.
That was.
if
I'm gonna do.
Hitler was just in Germany.
Yeah, Charlie
I
Kirk's
think
definitely
you could probably just get away with just not raising Hitler to make your point about why nationalism is good.
You know, the thing about
we could probably find other examples of how
Maybe mention
nationalism
like
is
African independence movement.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about go with the whole India didn't want to be colonized.
Right.
Do a little by your logic versus a bold expansion into Nazi territory.
Right.
Charlie Kirk knows she done goofed.
I think that yeah, but the thing about Candace Owens is that she's too smart for therapy. As she explained to Russell Brand.
She has too high of an IQ.
Yeah,
for
she
therapy.
said a lot of high IQ individuals can't do therapy, and you're sitting there like, Yeah.
Maybe take a second opinion.
I'm going to say
Candace.
that. Yeah. I think some IQ individuals need therapy urgently.
Let's go to the phones. You're calling from a 718 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Abby from Brooklyn.
Abby, how are you?
Good, good. I guess I really want to talk about something that this Russia thing that's troubling me and the framing of it. And I think you were getting at it a little bit yesterday with the guests, but you know, it makes me think of, like, in the post-Nixon era, post-Watergate, we had the Church Committee, I forget the name of the House Committee, but we had actual investigations of malfeasance from the president, and also from the investigations really focused on the intelligence class. I hesitate to use the word community because I think it's misappropriated when you use it for them. But, you know, that was the legacy of Watergate. And here, we really have those same nefarious forces that were investigated through the Church Commission taking over the investigation. And with no aim towards public disclosure, with no aim towards, like, any type of analysis that is going to edify the public as to the actual machinations of power within, like, the real estate class in New York or the oligarch class globally and how they launder money, right? It's really the nature of a prosecution, and the nature of a special prosecutor is secret and individualistic. And so that is, like, how I'm thinking about this more and more, and why I think it's really important to push back on this Mueller is going to save us. We should be pushing for a special committee, a congressional committee. Like, let AOC lead it, you know, where everything that they've developed so far, take it from them and make it with an aim towards disclosure to the public, with an aim towards public participation and democratic accountability.
Right. I mean, I agree with that, and I think the Democrats are going to push towards that a little bit. I mean, I think that's, but I do agree that, I mean, I think that I just, based on just my gut, I feel like they've uncovered a lot of crap that they don't really want to deal with.
I've heard that because it's the whole. I mean, you start looking at, like, Emirati and Gulf money across the political spectrum.
I mean,
are you kidding me?
I think there's just a lot of stuff that they've uncovered that is been, you know, more or less business as usual. And I think they're trying to, I think there is an interest. I can't point to an example of it, but again, that part of that is because the whole process is so opaque that there's an interest in severing certain things from other things, right? So that they can get to the illicit behavior by specific actors, but don't want
it's
to
like
actually
study Jeffrey Epstein, but don't really do that.
Right, exactly.
You know
they
what I'm
don't
saying.
want the whole structure of things to be, you know, in any way implicated. And I think that's the worst part about the Russia narrative, is just that there is there's something sort of more problematic out there, I think. And I'm not even talking on a political, I'm talking like on a sheerly like criminal level. And I think, I don't know. I mean, you know, I speculated before we went on the break about just a bunch of garbage in New York that I feel like people have probably avoided dealing with for years, in part, I think, because there were relationships that were formed between law enforcement and, you know, national security with ne'er-do-wells, if you will, that I think they'd rather not make public, because it wouldn't necessarily make those apparatus look too good. I mean, remember, we're also coming out of 2 decades almost now of, in the wake of 9/11, where we know torture was like given the green light. One can imagine there's a lot of things that law enforcement and national security apparatus I mean, if torture was okayed, what other, and we know about, warrantless wiretapping. There's a lot of stuff that probably, gray areas where a lot of people got a green light.
And look, and absolutely, these are overlapping sectors of power. If you're talking about billionaire class, if you're talking about that, the U.S. Attorney's Office and big law that represents the billionaires after they get out of the U.S. Attorney's Office, right? So these people are all connected, and so there's a class that needs to be exposed, and I agree. There's a lot of hesitancy to expose that, but what I worry about is that this becomes de rigueur, and this kind of, it's like a subcontracting of congressional duty to the prosecutor's office to solve problems, to fix things rather than expose the structure. And so this is like what happened in Brazil, literally, right? So this is a dangerous precedent to keep escalating the special prosecutor as a role in society. Like, I have no doubt that a right-wing Congress will fully take advantage of this president going forward.
I think that's totally
right.
That's a really good point.
And we should also add, it does certainly feel like, we've seen now the transcripts of testimony is flowing in one direction, flowing from the House Intelligence Committees to the Mueller investigation. So that's where all the resources are headed. But yes, I agree with you. There needs to be a broader look at this. And I don't know where that's going to come from at this moment, but I suspect that's that's why you got like Tom Steyer when he's pushing for impeachment. It's too narrowly focused in some level, but you're setting up the importance of an apparatus to have the elected representatives do this investigation ostensibly for a broader agenda than just get Donald Trump indicted. But appreciate the call, Abby.
Yep.
Calling from a 678 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
How you doing? This is Chris from Georgia.
Chris from Georgia. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to talk to you guys about what you were saying about. I think you guys like to believe the South is more bigoted than it actually is. I grew up in Georgia all my life. I'm actually a bisexual. And the Pride March in Atlanta is one of the most glorious things I've actually ever seen. I've also gone to the Pride March over in Birmingham, Alabama. Obviously not as prevalent there, but it's a very accepting place. I've grown up in both places I have family in Alabama. I wouldn't say that that the South is necessarily as racist as you would like to believe, but I would say that it is very anti-Islamic. Like, my family in Alabama I don't keep in contact with them much anymore just because they have shared their views on Islam, and it's been very bigoted and very Islamophobic. And I just kind of dissociated with them because I've read the entire Quran, and a lot of my best friends are Islamic. And I just believe that the South is anti-Islamic, but I think people jump too soon to believe that it's racist. Would you agree?
Well, I don't, I don't know what it means to say that the South is racist in your mind. In my mind, it means that we have a long established history of systemic racism in the South, that if you look at things like disenfranchising voters, we have a real problem in states like North Carolina, for instance, in Georgia, for instance. I think there's a very good case to be made that Stacey Abrams would have won that election. But
there's a lot of mixed review on that. Once that goes through court, I can definitely agree with you on that. But there is a lot of mixed review on that, and I haven't come to a conclusion on it quite yet.
What do you mean by mixed review? What do you mean by mixed?
There's a lot of people in Georgia. There is a lot of just people are not. I wouldn't even say mixed review. I would say just there's not certainty on the fact. At least in Georgia. You might be right in North Carolina. I don't know about that as much. There is not certainty on the fact that there is voter suppression and voter suppression of specifically illegal voter suppression specifically of African Americans.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean by specifically on African Americans? Look, there's a long history in this country. Like, for instance, poll taxes.
Well, you're talking about the Stacey Abrams vote. That's what I'm talking about. Of course, the history, I absolutely agree with you. It's absolutely demonstrable. But with the Stacey Abrams vote, there is no legal certainty. The purging that Brian Kemp did, you can believe that it may have been in the thought of malice. It was completely legal what he did. And it was actually a law that was made up by the Democrats, the law that he used. So it's that's what I'm saying. It's not certain yet. Once it goes through court, she is suing him. If she comes out and wins and settles with him, I could change my mind on that.
Yes, Michael's point is it can be legal and then also discriminatory. B, I would say we've never had a law in this country, even in the Jim Crow era, that says black people can't vote. We did prior to it, but then there was an amendment to the Constitution that made it much harder.
Yeah,
so what?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
So wait. Will you let me finish?
Yeah.
Let me finish, please. But then what we saw were poll taxes and literacy tests. Now, it is true that not only black people were filtered out, there was a lot of also poor white people. But the idea was, it's sort of like I'm not fishing for dolphin, when I throw out my tuna nets. But if I get some dolphin in there, it doesn't matter because I'm really getting a bunch of tuna. That's the situation you look at. So I don't know what you mean by specifically, but I find that to be racist. So I think, to argue.
I think there's plenty of Republican lawmakers who probably, if you're making like racist in a super, super limited sense of like some type of personal antipathy, I bet probably a lot of them, maybe even most of them don't, but they're strategically racist because they don't want people voting for candidates that they're going to lose to if there were clean and open elections. And it wasn't just the purges in Georgia, which I question you on fundamentally. They definitely targeted Democratic voters across the board, period. And the second thing was they also shut down polling places in predominantly African-American neighborhoods, and that was another huge feature of the election. So regardless of whether or not, maybe Brian Kemp personally, doesn't dislike black people or whatever, but as a structural matter, that's structurally racist as literally an electoral strategy. And that was the Daily Show segment with Asif Manvi that was used in a district.
That was North Carolina.
But I'm saying the same principle. The guy said racist stuff but at the end of the day, his actual point was, I don't care whether they're African Americans or students or whoever, we're blocking people from voting who will vote for Democrats. That's the bottom line.
I would also argue,
and I don't want to just touch on this last thing here, for that, because I wanted to ask you guys something about Tulsi Gabbard, but so.
Are you the worst caller ever?
What you guys are saying, I wouldn't say it's just specifically a Republican thing. It could just be especially in the state of Georgia. I think it's been a Democrat and Republican thing, especially considering.
You started this call by saying the South isn't racist. I do think it's Islamophobic.
No, I didn't say it's not racist. I said no. I did not say it's not racist. I said I don't think it's as racist as you'd like to believe in the present day. That's all I said.
Well, how do you know how much you think I would like to believe that it is racist?
Gotta jump.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I grew up in the South. I grew up in a. I would say southern Georgia is more racist than northern Georgia. It also comes down a lot to demographics because northern Georgia is a much wealthier area, and there's a lot more Indian people. There's a lot more Asian people. Even African American people who are trying to get out of
the less white people you have in Georgia, the less racist it will be. But you've called up and you've said it's not as racist as you think it is, Sam. Well, you don't know how racist I think it is. Then you've gone on to say that most people are actually more Islamophobic. Then you've come around and said that Then you've come around to say that the racism is not just Republicans. So This is what we're
Oh,
both
yeah,
going to do.
definitely
Here's the
both,
project.
Republican and Democratic.
Right.
For sure, at least historically.
Appreciate the call.
Finally. Jesus.
Hey.
When he said he wanted to talk about Tulsi Gabbard, I was like,
yeah, no.
I mean, is the point he was
white-
trying to make that relative to the North? You know,
I think the North pats themselves on
Yeah,
the back.
I
way
think
too
that's
much.
maybe what he
and
was
I have no
trying to
doubt
come in
that
with.
in the South, plenty of people have said to me that in the South, there's actually just more like
Talked for
normal
25
day in
minutes
and day out
and
interaction. But
Talked for 20 minutes. He didn't say anything about the North.
I was ready to agree with him that not every single person in the South is racist, and that it's not helpful when liberals try and paint every Southerner with the same brush, and then he just did himself no favors.
I don't think that everybody in the South is racist, but I think they're all white trash. We should probably nuke it. I'm just kidding. That's probably not helpful for outreach either. I'm tired.
Folks, Sean Spicer has had a very rough go of things ever since he was the spokesperson
Have you
for
seen
Donald
this?
Trump. Now, to be fair, I think Eric Bullard has actually had some
Bowling.
Eric Bowling has actually had some difficulty, right? I mean, lost his son.
Yeah.
So I do have some sympathy for him. It only goes so far. But Sean Spicer, I have no sympathy for. And so this is fun to watch these guys assess. Like, first off, where are they? Oh, they're in Trump Hotel lobby. I see. Okay.
See the chandelier?
Now
See
it's
the
making
class?
sense.
There's no braille, so it's not
Do you
bad
like how
luck.
Sean Spicer tried to distance himself from the whole Trump administration thing, and then he's
It
just
didn't
like,
work. He couldn't get a TV gig.
I can't get a job.
And now he's trying to do the opposite in this clip.
Yeah,
he's trying to
now
make
he's-
himself.
I was with it the whole time. Whole time.
Yeah, he said, when are you coming back to the White House? And I told him, I said very clearly, Mr. President, I love you. I love this White House, but you're never getting me back.
What's next for Sean Spicer?
You can go to SeanSpicer.com. And I'm having a fun time.
Pause
went
it.
down and
Pause
talked
it.
to-
Wait a second. Let's go to SeanSpicer.com, shall we? I'm
Hell
super
yeah.
curious. What is at SeanSpicer.com?
SeanSpicer.com.
Let's see. What's next for Sean Spicer?
Oh, that hub of imploded
Let's see.
middle-aged Phil.
We can download podcasts. We could buy the briefing.
Oh, man.
Check out recent media here. I'm going to go down to this.
I need to start selling briefings.
Dude, seriously.
There is. Oh, here he is on Virginia. Oh, he was on Fox News talking about Virginia's Democratic leadership.
But not as a contributor.
There's a well, that's
Not as a
interesting.
contributor, just
Oh,
a
you
hint.
can buy the book.
Oh, this poor son of a bitch.
Yeah, download podcasts. Let's see what we got here.
This is a different one than we saw. I actually don't know what's in the rest of this clip.
Wow, he's got a lot. Okay, let's keep going.
It's a Bodega Boys spinoff.
Fun time. I went down and talked to Glenn. I've talked to you a bunch. I have a fun time.
I'm walking, true story, I'm walking through the airport. I'm coming back from
Charleston. You come back from DCA.
From DCA, but we were in, it was 7 below in
Yeah.
Ohio. Came back to DCA, did a show, and I'm coming back and I'm like, bowling. I hear bowling down the hallway.
Yeah.
Spike, where were you? You were in a, like,
I had a client meeting, and I was yelling at you, and you barely recognized me, and you were like,
no, you were behind a rope. I'm like, what, Spice, you like a velvet rope?
yeah.
Like,
And
keep
velvet.
the
I need
people away?
velvet. I love velvet. It feels good. I was calling you. Look, I'm having fun, dude.
Feel free.
Look at that's good. I
Feel
mean,
free.
I never knew that Target had good clothes like that.
All right. So do we keep Sean for the tweets? Do we have any tweets? We have some pictures.
That was a real burn.
Yeah, he didn't like that. Do we
Oh,
keep?
this is beautiful.
Still spicy.
Want to see this?
Nothing
again.
like watching these guys slur at each other and say nothing.
Feels good. I was calling you. Look, I'm having fun, dude.
Feel free.
Look at that's good. I
Feel
mean,
free.
I never knew that Target had good clothes like that.
All right. So do we keep Sean for the tweets? Do we have any tweets? We have some pictures. Some
Yeah.
Twitter pics. Can we do it? I know he's got to go.
That's good. I mean,
We have tweets.
Target. Walmart.
Target, yeah.
Yeah, Target. Yeah, pretty funny.
Armani.
Yeah.
Hold on. After the party, watching Beck and Bowling, Make America Great Again. You have another one? Give us another one.
Pretty good stuff.
Watching So to big screen.
Oh, man, that guy looked like AA Seaman a little
Take
bit.
camera here again. Take the wide shot.
Got wide
Yeah.
shot.
Wide shot. This place has been it's crazy here. The place is packed.
so too live from
Yeah,
Trump.
and by the way, the Blaze Groupon that you offered.
No, it's not Blaze Groupon. Let's be honest.
It's Bowling Groupon.
BlazeTV.com/SOTU. You get 20% off.
It was a Bowling Groupon. Free drinks at the hotel.
You know you want in on this. Spice.
I believe that.
God.
I definitely believe that.
Oh, also,
I get fucking drink vouchers. I'm not on TV.
Not
Fuck
only should
you,
that,
Eric.
not only should people not have to watch that on TV, that conversation should not ever exist.
Dude, what
for
are you
anybody.
talking about? That is some of the best right-wing media that I've seen in years, and I have to watch this garbage every day.
I feel bad for the sport jackets in that conversation. Just that they actually had to exist within the two of them.
That was awesome. Down to the it's Armani after several seconds of resisting.
It's funny.
I'm not going to
it's
go for the
Armani.
bait. I'm not going to go for the bait. I'm not. It's Armani.
Also, I want you guys to know Sean Spicer's podcast is called Everything's Going to Be All Right. Presented without commentary.
With Katie Pavlich.
A lot of meaning in that
And Sean Spicer.
for everybody.
Katie
Who's
Pavlich.
Is she the one who ate the bad
she
sandwich?
was from Texas. She used to go out with that guy Brandon
Oh God, I don't
Darby or something like
I
that.
don't care.
I don't
It's
know.
all
Some
right.
right wing. There it is, though. It is nice, though, however, to see that Sean Spicer has to drink so heavily and he's returned to, conceding that he is what he is. So
What a cock.
but ladies and gentlemen, we have some important breaking news.
We're really going on the tour here.
According to Twitter, just 2 days ago, it took us 2 days to get to this news. Sorry. Can you scroll up? Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay. Brandon Straka, the unsilent ...
The unsilent minority.
Unsilent minority. I'm considering running against AOC in 2020 in New York State's 14th congressional district. And then, of course, his followers, please don't be joking. Please don't be joking. Please do this, do it.
Yeah, I said the same thing.
I was gonna say also me.
He came back.
Please do this.
And he wrote back, not a joke. I never wanted a career in politics.
No, he just wanted to be famous.
But I would consider this because I'm probably the only New Yorker who could go up against her and stop this crazy fringe leftist train from further infiltrating our government and reverse its course.
What is up with this dude's use of language?
That's the crazy fringe leftist
Oh
train.
my God, I know it. I love the idea that somehow he has the idea that he's probably the only New Yorker who could go up against it.
He said probably. He did hedge it.
Is he going to run as a Democrat or a Republican, do you think?
He's already walked away from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, he walked away.
It can't walk back.
You can't walk
to take
back
on
to what
AOC.
you've walked away from.
Wow.
Maybe that would actually be really funny if he went old
Don't you
school,
see
like,
I'm the
gonna save
only
the
New
party.
Yorker who could take her on? Oh my God.
I'm torn. I don't know. I mean, how much attention do we give him? But God, it would be fun.
But yeah, I mean that he said we need to stop this crazy fringe leftist train.
Yep.
So just, I mean, this is a mixed metaphor. We all know this, but
Yes.
just to go slowly through it. Stop this crazy fringe leftist train. So it's a fringe leftist train.
Fringe
That's
lefty
a crazy train. That's Ozzy Osbourne.
Crazy train. Crazy
from
fringe.
further infiltrating. So it's a train that's infiltrating.
But I thought she's already in Congress, though. So if it was further, wouldn't he be taking out another person? Like, wouldn't
That's
it be in
right.
another district?
It
with
doesn't make
someone
sense.
else who might join her in Congress.
He's trying to reverse the AOC.
So what he should he should say revert. See, he makes you. He's doing the same thing to me now he did to you. He makes you super pedantic, where it would be like, what you mean is reverse the train, Brandon.
Well,
remember
actually,
how 20% of your conversation with
infiltrating our government means getting deeper into the apparatus of the government. So it's
Right.
not. He perceives AOC as not just showing up at Congress, but boring further into the establishment, which I think is arguable.
It's arguable.
But he wants to reverse the course of the crazy fringe leftist train. as opposed to the non-crazy fringe leftist train. So the regular fringe, the regular leftist train could go. Probably also the regular fringe leftist train could go. It's just the crazy leftist train that he wants to stop.
So he probably feels, so he's saying he feels comfortable with Nancy Pelosi?
It's unclear.
Yeah.
It's unclear. And that's one of the things we wanted to say. Brandon, if we need to talk about your incorrect use of language, with the hopes that perhaps your run for Congress will be more enjoyable and more likely to happen from our perspective, let us know. We're of course we're going to be apathetic about it.
Yes.
So we're just going to throw it out there sort of in a lackadaisical
We
manner.
will be the Roger Stone to your Al Sharpton, and I'm sure Brendan doesn't know what that means, but look it up, apathetically. That was amazing. People who haven't seen the debate yet were.
It's just on members. We should
it's only for members.
Yeah, we should
become a member of the Majority
We should probably
Report.
unlock it too, maybe.
But just that there was a real segment of a not inconsequential amount of time of Sam, like a sort of condescending, disappointed parent, and Brendan Strucker is like a belligerently stupid 13-year-old, literally arguing about the usage of the word apathetic.
Do you mean to keep having transportation noises coming?
Like Matt's into
I found a steamroller noise.
No, it was a steam. I just love it. That Sam's like, no. So you
Not
would
an
say that was
apathetic.
no. You would say what you would say would be apathetically doing nothing. As an
doing
example,
by.
you would be not. And he's like, I use my words very consciously, which is the sound drop from the debate for me. Is I choose my words very consciously.
I can't wait to see him go after AOC. See how that goes for him.
Oh, there it is, a road roller. Okay, let's do this clip
Look
of
at how apathetic that looks.
Of Mullen. Yeah. Setting the parameters in which you're allowed to be concerned with the separation of children from their parents. Again, it's almost like, the children have it bad. They don't contemplate. You rarely hear people like the suffering that the parents also endure, the idea that their children are taken away. But this guy's from Oklahoma. He's got a very, very specific litmus test as to whether you can find the separation of children from their parents, the kidnapping of children, to be morally and wrong, or wrong on just any level.
That cage is from 2014.
The images that I have seen in the media are mostly from the Nogales Processing Center during the 2014 incident.
Right, so 2014. So that was under the Obama administration, right?
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, I worked at Response.
So my colleagues on the other side want to say that this is the Trump separation and the family separation, but the separation was going on prior to this.
Pause it for 1 second. To the extent that there were family separations under the Obama administration, and they certainly contemplated very briefly, is my understanding, to the extent that there were parents, if they came in and they were found to have narcotics on them, or if there was reason to believe that they were a danger to the children, they would be separated. But it was not a wholesale separation like this new policy by the Trump administration, where definitionally, if they came in, they were considered to be criminal, and therefore that's the guise under which the Trump administration separated thousands of children from their parents. This is surely Mark Wayne Mullen knows this, but of course he's lying.
Separation was going on prior to this, and all it is about the safety of the children. Now, if we can't agree on anything, let's not make a political point out of this and start pointing fingers at each other. It's about the children. It's about the children. I know some of you guys have opened your homes up to kids, but how many of you have actually opened your homes up to kids? Right now I have 6 living with me. 3 are biological. So you want to talk about opening your family and talk about the kids? Then get off your butt and do it yourself. You want to really be compassionate about it? Then open your house up. Oh, wait, just make a political point. I'm okay with just sitting here. I'm okay with just saying we need to do something. Well, do more than just say something. Now, there is some colleagues of mine on both sides of the aisle that have been great, that's opened their houses up. But there's few. But everybody wants to make a political point. The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, it's about taking care of the kids. And if we can get away from the political rhetoric and just focus on the kids, then we might actually be able to get something done. But as long as we dig in and point fingers, we're going to be right here 2 years from now, too.
So this guy, according to him, the way you can help Latin American children who have been separated from their parents, maybe they were 2 months old, maybe they were 10 months old, maybe they were 2 years old or 5 years old or 6 years old or 8 years old. The way you help them is bring them to your own home. That's the way you do this. And incidentally, the parents who don't know where their kids are, well, you're SOL. I'm sorry. We don't need that because we don't adopt parents. And there are reports. They have said that they cannot return children to their parents. Some, the vast majority of these kids were picked up by sponsors. So at the very least, some family members who theoretically are in touch with other family members in other countries, right? But at least 10% were in this sort of like miscellaneous crew. And some percent, not broken down, were basically provided to Christian adoption agencies. I'm not saying that's the driving force, but this guy's basically promoting the notion that, like, we've taken care of the kids.
It's Dickensian.
We've
actually
taken them from their parents.
genocidal.
The kids who've been separated from their parents by making sure that they never see their parents again.
Well,
Exactly.
it happened a lot with Indian removal. We'd take the kids and give them to families for domestic labor.
Yep. So I don't know. That's a tough argument.
Be more active agents in the genocide, guys. That's what Mark Wayne wants you to do.
That's just stunning. Mark Wayne.
Don't condemn kidnapping kids unless you kidnap them.
Bruce Wayne Mullen is better.
God, it just makes me want to take his kids and raise them right.
Chris Collins came up in the conversation today with Digby to the extent that he was going around Congress a while back bragging about how many millionaires he had made by giving them inside stock tips on legislation that he was promoting.
It's because I'm smart.
It's because I'm a smart
And,
guy.
of course, the voters in
They
New
didn't
York,
think they weren't as
upstate
thrilled
New
by
York,
that?
they were, and they brought him back, despite the fact that I think at that point he'd been indicted. Correct?
I gotta say, good for him. You know what?
And
gotta respect that hustle.
well, that's like chapter 3 of my "Voters Are to Blame" book. But
blaming the electorate.
here is AOC on the House Ways and Means Committee explaining this dynamic that you can basically, and look, this is how it works in local governments all across the country. Small towns and maybe not so small towns. State reps. State like New York. Why am I a state rep? It's good for business. My business. I've got a blank business, and this is how I get clients, and this is how I meet people, and I sell things to the state. I mean, just theoretically, on the federal level, you don't want to see as much of it, but now that seems to be not the case.
Okay, great. So, green light for hush money. I can do all sorts of terrible things. It's totally legal right now for me to pay people off. And that is considered speech. That money is considered speech. So I use my special interest dark money funded campaign to pay off folks that I need to pay off and get elected. So now I'm elected, now I'm in. I've got the power to draft, lobby, and shape the laws that govern the United States of America. Fabulous. Now, is there any hard limit that I have, perhaps Mrs. Hobart Flynn, is there any hard limit that I have in terms of what legislation I'm allowed to touch? Are there any limits on the laws that I can write or influence, especially if I'm based on the special interest funds that I accepted to finance my campaign and get me elected in the first place?
There's no limits.
So there's none. So I can be totally funded by oil and gas. I can be totally funded by Big Pharma, come in, write Big Pharma laws, and there's no limits to that whatsoever.
That's right.
Okay, so Awesome. Now, Mr. Mirabani, the last thing I want to do is get rich with as little work possible. That's really what I'm trying to do as the bad guy, right? So is there anything preventing me from holding stocks, say, in an oil or gas company, and then writing laws to deregulate that industry and cause, that could potentially cause the stock value to soar and accrue a lot of money in that time?
You could do that.
So I could do that. I could do that now with the way our current laws are set up. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep. There you go.
She then goes on to clarify and confirm that there are even fewer laws constraining what the president can do.
Yeah, it's well, the president can do just about anything in that respect, and I mean, the emoluments are supposed to clause is supposed to prohibit some of that, but
Have a hotel.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough, to get charged.
Did you see that? What I just?
It's a real problem. Yeah, I'm in the
think
middle
we
of
should-
something else though,
oh, sorry.
but yeah, so that's.
I thought it was a transition. Yeah, money in politics is bad. Sorry, go ahead. Breaking news.
Yeah. But that's not money in politics, right? That's enriching yourself. That's not the influence of outside money in terms of, it's simply just using politics as an extension of your business. And that's just pure corruption. That just happens to be legal in this country.
Yeah. She's so good at breaking that stuff down in a way that people can understand.
She's really good at doing that, and also, like, the media follows her. So it's not just that she's really good. Maybe that's, it's maybe a little bit of chicken and the egg, but I think she's just exceptional at doing that, and fortunate that the media is following her around, and she's a superstar, and so we get that message broadcast in a way that, like, we haven't in decades. I mean, I imagine Henry Waxman must have said that same thing 10 years ago, and no one cared.
He's pretty electrifying.
Only Dorsey
guy.
knows who I'm talking about.
You see the
He was
Cali?
California, and I think it was
I know that
government.
guy is.
I can't remember what committee it was, but it was a big oversight committee.
He's really into Cardi B too.
Is he?
No.
He could have.
No, he's not on Twitter talking about Cardi B.
Here is this is a different. What hearing is this? No, the Ilan Omar.
Isn't this a rally? I don't know.
All right. Well, maybe we'll play it on Monday.
Yeah, save it for Monday. That's evergreen. It's important.
All right. I got time for 2 more calls. All right. Let me take a look at this now.
You don't want to show that fan art to everybody?
When
they do a good job like that, they should be rewarded, I think.
Pre-order my book, Blaming the Electorate, My Guide to Hating America, coming February 2019, verso, buy here.
But look at the cover, see? Blaming the Electorate, From Revolution to Republicanism, How Do People Continually Fail Us, by Samuel Seder. And it's Sam in his MSNBC pose peering quizzically over the Founding Fathers. This is a good piece of work.
Hey, listen, I'm saying this right now. If my book title ends up being this, it's my idea.
No, actually, it's my idea.
Well, it doesn't matter. This isn't any evidence.
Much.
This isn't going to prohibit it, because that is very well may be the book. I don't know if Revolution to Republicanism,
your book is
How People Continually Fail Us is a pretty catchy title.
Your book is
it's a pretty
less catchy, but destroyed by the Bush years.
This is a pretty catchy title.
I know. That's why.
No, I'm talking the subtitle too.
Oh, how the people from Revolution to Republicanism, how the people continually fail us. I'm telling you, this is at Sam Seder's alter egos. Sam Seder alter egos at Sam Killed Seth on Twitter.
Yep, there you go. All right, let's take one more phone call. Then we got to get going. Calling from a 480 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this me?
Yeah, who's this?
Hey, Sam, it's Armand from Vietnam.
Armand from Vietnam. What's on your mind, Armand?
Hey guys, I haven't been watching the show for. I mean, I used to listen to you guys, or used to listen to you on Sam on Air America back when my dad would play it on the radio when we were driving around. But I haven't been listening to the program for too long. Have you guys ever talked about? And I feel like this would be something Michael might talk about more. But a book by a guy named Alexander Dugin called "Foundations of Geopolitics."
I've talked about it on TMBS. Yes.
Ah, okay. Well, then I'll just go watch that episode, and you guys have a wonderful weekend.
Appreciate the call.
That was a good call. Keep them coming like that.
Oh, I thought he was going to tell us about it.
Calling from a 367 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, I'm Damon. I'm originally from Atlanta, but I live in the UK. I called once before. I just wanted to make some few points, if possible. I think I'm getting a little bit worried about the negotiations on the border security package. From all the reports I've been getting from the New York Times, Washington Post, Politico, it looks like the Democrats are going to give Trump anywhere from 2 billion to even 2.5 billion for the border wall, and they're not going to get anything in exchange, no data, nothing. So Trump is going to, the idea of the GOP's compromise is for Democrats to give them half the border wall, and they're not going to get anything. So I urge you to start protest and on Twitter or something, so let Democrats not accept the deal, because from all the frameworks I'm looking at right now, it's not a good deal. Democrats are agreeing to give him $2 billion for extra border barriers. It's still the wall. So at the end of the day, after all the posturing, it looks like Democrats are going to give him half of his money for the border wall.
All right.
So I wanted to say I urge you to please protest that and make
okay,
and make everyone aware. And second, I wanted to talk just briefly. I wanted to touch about because I'm black also, so I wanted to touch about how, in my opinion, when I hear the words identity politics, in my opinion, in the context, especially in the context how progressive use it, I still hear it in the same context as how conservative use it. For me, that's a dog whistle. When I hear identity politics, for me, that's civil rights. That's, oh, don't go too far on civil rights. That's how I look at it. So I wanted to get your take on that. And this whole idea that we need to understand the rural America, we need to understand white America. But I've never heard anyone on Fox News ever once saying, let's understand black America, black incarceration rates.
Well, yeah.
So why is it up to us?
Yeah,
so
I agree with this.
Point. Why is it up to black people? I heard Bernie Sanders saying we need to understand them. I don't want to understand them. They never understood us when Trayvon Martin got killed, when black people are getting killed every day. So why is the onus on us to accept them? I don't want to accept them because they never accepted us. Not once on Fox News they are not even sympathetic to black people getting killed. They are laughing at us. They make Trayvon Martin Halloween costumes. So how can you accept these people? So I think that's a fundamental disagreement I have. I'm not going to accept rural America when they're never going to accept black people. They think that black people getting shot is because they are thugs. So I think that's a fundamental disagreement I have with the whole understand rural America. And for me, in my opinion, you touch on it, but this identity politics, for me, that's a dog whistle. That's a cold war.
I know. All right. No, I get it. I get it. You're starting to be repetitive. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to let you go because I get your point. I mean, I think I don't know what's happening in terms of the negotiations. $2.5 billion is towards the wall it's a meaningless number in terms of actually building the wall. Symbolically, it may give Trump the ability to come out and say that he's won. But again, yes, I agree with you. If the Democrats haven't gotten anything out of it, it's a bad deal. Because there's obviously it's asymmetrical. Democrats don't want the government to shut down, but I have a feeling that the pain that Republicans feel at this point, at least to them directly, is enough to get some benefits out of it. And I would like it to be sort of some type of permanent status for DACA folks and the temporary protected status folks, and maybe even DAPA. But we'll see. As far as the other question about, I don't know if people are calling for black people to, learn to feel the pain of rural folk. I think when you hear people say that, and I don't know that I necessarily even agree with it, and I probably don't, but my sense is when you hear people say that, what they're saying is that we need to be able to get a certain amount of votes, and by we, they're talking about the candidates who are running. And so, but I agree with you. I mean, broadly speaking, to the extent that identity politics have been practiced in this country, it is a function of white people creating these identities. I think Stacey Abrams had an op-ed the other day where she said, we weren't the one. Marginalized people were not the ones who established these identities. These identities were established to suppress people. There was no identities that were formed out there. Black people did not, to the extent that black people have promoted identities, it's a way of basically,
it's a corrective.
Well, it's a corrective, and it's a reappropriation of identities that have been used to oppress them. And I think you see marginal groups do that all the time, right? And so, yeah, I am very skeptical at the broad notion that we have to understand the certainly not that black people are obligated to understand the difficulty for white folk who have lost their social status. I do think it's a smart thing to do from a strategic standpoint to know as much as the motivations of all the players on the playing field.
I would go back and watch 1988 campaign speeches by Jesse Jackson when he actually really synthesized these things in a way that no modern politician does. And the conversation I had on this show with Bill Fletcher Jr. about it that really transcends the kind of dull dichotomies of this debate.
I mean, look, there is a good kind and a bad kind of identity politics, as far as I'm concerned. The term identity politics was originally coined by the Combahee River Collective, which was a collective of radical, queer, black, Marxist feminists in an effort to kind of synthesize these ideas and make Marxism more inclusive of people's current experiences. Because they felt like, especially the feminist movement of the 70s was not terribly inclusive to working class concerns, black concerns, LGBT concerns, or any of it. Where identity politics become bad is when they fall into the hands of neoliberals and are used in a disingenuous way to try to quell any kind of dissent from the left. So we can use identity politics to make our leftist movement stronger and better and more inclusive, or we can, or they can use them in a disingenuous and shitty way. And when they do that, you need to call them out.
Yeah, and also, obviously, the right uses identity politics
absolutely.
quite a bit.
They're the custodians of identity politics.
All right, folks, we've run out of time. I'm sorry, callers. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my shifted